Senior brother, please, don't die? A girl's sobbing voice dragged me back from a sea of chaos. I opened my eyes and saw a beautiful young woman kneeling beside me, her face drenched in tears. My mind was a blur. The last thing I remembered was the battlefield of gods and demons. I was surrounded by a dozen high-ranking demon generals sent by the demon lord. I fought until my strength failed, and I died. But by some miracle, my demonic essence hadn't vanished. It transformed into a soul remnant, escaped the battlefield, and drifted into a body that had just drawn its last breath. Now, my soul had taken complete control. As I lay there, fragments of the original owner's memories flooded my mind. It was a strange coincidence. This person was also named Zhengxing. He was a simpleton with the intelligence of a 6-year-old. He lived only to eat and play. Abandoned by his parents as a baby, he was raised by 2 giant apes in the mountains until a master named Zheng Tianlong found him. Zheng Tianlong brought him to Qingling Mountain and took him as a disciple, mostly because the boy possessed an incredibly sturdy physique. But no matter how hard the master tried, Zhengxing's mind never grew up. His most recent memory was of his master leaving for a distant place. While he was gone, Zhengxing's fellow disciples lured him to the spirit transformation pool to play. He had accidentally fallen in, and the shock killed him. That was the exact moment my soul moved in. Senior brother, you're finally awake. The girl cried out, her eyes lighting up with joy. I moved my arms and legs. The movements were fluid, without a hint of lag. I was stunned. Usually, only cultivators at the Void Heaven realm or higher have the power to possess a corpse. I was just a mid-level demon cultivator at the Spirit Wanderer realm. The odds of this working were 1 in 10 million. Then, I felt something in my sea of consciousness. My heart skipped a beat. A golden, shimmering book was resting there quietly. This was the reason the demon lord had sent his generals to kill me. It was the Jiuhua heavenly script, a treasure famous across the 6 realms. Having this book made dying 10 times over worth it. I looked at the girl and spoke, my voice a bit weak. Junior sister, where am I? What happened? The girl, Imo Linger, let out a long breath of relief. Brother Xing, you're finally back. I thought you were gone for good. Imo Linger was the niece of a powerful immortal from Dongling Island, but she was closest to me. When she joined the sect at 9 years old, others bullied her. The original Zhengxing, despite being a simpleton, had immense strength. He protected her because the master told him to. To the other disciples, Zhengxing was a fool who didn't deserve a beauty like her. Searching his memories, I realized those brothers didn't exactly mean to kill him, but they definitely wanted to torment him. When he fell into the pool, the spiritual beast inside lashed out. The shockwave killed the original Zhengxing instantly, blowing his body back onto the shore. He hadn't even reached the first stage of cultivation, so he stood no chance. In this world, everyone, humans, demons, and monsters, follows 7 realms of power: Spirit Gathering, Aperture Piercing, Spirit Wanderer, Jade Pavilion, Void Heaven, 100 Tribulations, and Great Success. Those who reach great success become spirit gods, capable of commanding the elements before ascending to a dreamlike new world. The old Zhengxing hadn't even stepped through the door of the first realm. Linger, I asked, did those guys just run away when I fell in? Imo Linger looked down. They were probably scared of the spiritual beast. I was terrified too. Humph, I growled. Heartless cowards. One day, I'll grow strong enough to settle the score with every single one of them. They've disgraced the name of Qingling Mountain. I checked my internal meridians. The original owner's cultivation was a total mess, and the beast's attack had left the body in tatters. It would take time to heal, but I wasn't worried. I had the Jiuhua heavenly script. Legends say whoever holds this book has the best shot at becoming a spirit god. I had to be careful, though. I was a demon cultivator in the heart of human territory. If I showed even a hint of demonic aura, I'd be hunted down. Humans and demons don't exactly get along. 2 weeks passed. Thanks to the healing techniques in the heavenly script, I recovered faster than anyone expected. As I brought my body back to its peak state, I discovered something that made my blood race. This new body wasn't just sturdy, it was the legendary 8 Desolations divine physique. In the legendary 16 realms, there are 8 rare constitutions. They are the Azure Dragon, White Tiger, vermilion bird, black tortoise, golden ape, silver fox, purple bull, and red chain. As it turned out, the body I now inhabited possessed the golden ape divine physique. For any normal cultivator, this was a dream that could only be sought but never found. The fact that it fell into my lap could only be described as destiny. I spent the next 2 weeks focused entirely on cultivation. Using the secrets of the Jiuhua heavenly script, I pushed my power directly into the spirit-gathering realm. Inside my body, a spectral image of my spirit began to form. It took the shape of a tiny, golden monkey. I decided to head out, but I didn't get far before I heard a familiar, annoying voice. "Yo, isn't this that idiot Jingxing?" A voice sneered. "It's been half a month. Look at him, all alive and kicking again." "Yeah," another laughed. "I heard the fool fell into the spirit pool and almost got ripped apart by a beast. He's only been back 2 weeks, and he's already out walking. He's got one hell of a lucky life." A group of guys in green spiritual robes surrounded me, their faces twisted with mockery. I stayed silent, my eyes narrowing as I locked onto their leader. He stared back, but his smirk faltered. To him, my eyes probably looked like 2 bottomless pits of darkness, a literal demon's den. He tried to hold my gaze, but I triggered a technique from the script. A dark vortex began to swirl within my pupils, pulling his consciousness inward. Suddenly, within that endless darkness, a golden shadow erupted with blinding light. "Ah!" The guy screamed at the top of his lungs. He clutched his eyes and collapsed, rolling on the ground in agony. "My eyes! My eyes!" His friends scrambled around him, panic written all over their faces. "What happened? What's wrong?" I hadn't even lifted a finger, yet their leader was writhing in pain. Fear finally replaced their arrogance. If I had done this, I was far more dangerous than they ever imagined. They struggled to haul their leader up, but he had already passed out cold. "Zheng Xing," one of them barked, his voice trembling. "We're all disciples of Qingling Mountain. It was just a joke. Don't go too far. Undo whatever curse you put on him." I looked at them, my voice cold as ice. "If any of you ever disrespect me again, this guy will be your example." I flicked my sleeves and walked away without a second glance. I didn't want to kill him. Killing a fellow disciple was a capital crime in this sect, and truth be told, my current cultivation wasn't high enough to finish him off anyway. It was a bluff, a mental shock meant to intimidate. He'd wake up in a few hours, but the fear would stay forever. I left them standing there, staring at each other in silence. I had used a minor soul-striking technique from the Jiuhua heavenly script. It allowed me to use my spirit to deliver a direct mental blow through my eyes. "Brother Xing," a sweet voice called out. "I've been looking everywhere for you." It was Mo Linger. She ran up to me, her face flushed with worry. "Why aren't you resting? You nearly scared me to death. Your body hasn't fully healed yet. You can't just run around like this. Come on, let's go back." I turned and gave her a reassuring smile. "Linger, did you forget? My body is my strongest asset. Don't worry, I'm completely fine now. I wouldn't be out here if I wasn't." She tucked a stray hair behind her ear and sighed. Fine. I know you're tough, but you shouldn't treat your health like a game. Be good and come back with me." I felt a strange mix of helplessness and warmth. Back in the demon realm, no one ever cared for me like this. That world was built on schemes and betrayal. Even fathers, sons, and brothers would slit each other's throats for the slightest bit of profit. As we walked, Linger leaned close. She was young, but she was growing into a beautiful woman, and her soft presence beside me felt incredibly comfortable. Other male disciples passed us, their eyes burning with envy. They couldn't understand why such a beautiful girl was so devoted to a guy like me. I didn't care what they thought. I was never the type to play nice with people I didn't like. "Hey, isn't this the idiot Jingxing?" A young man in lavish robes blocked our path. I recognized him from my new memories. This was Lin Feng, the son of a high-ranking elder. He was also the senior brother of the guy I had just collapsed. I realized immediately he wasn't here for a chat. He was here for revenge. But instead of mentioning his friend, he used Linger as his excuse. "I thought I warned you to stay away from our beautiful junior sister Linger," Lin Feng sneered. "Are you deaf?" Before I could speak, Linger stepped forward. She didn't give him an inch of respect. "Lin Feng, you only act tough because your father is an elder. What's there to be proud of?" Our master is the great elder of Qingling Mountain. What we do is none of your business. Linger was already at the late stage of the spirit-gathering realm, so she wasn't afraid of him. Lin Feng's face darkened. He turned his gaze to me, ignoring her. Zheng Xing, if you're a man, come out and fight me one-on-one. Stop hiding behind a woman like a coward. Lin Feng, Linger snapped. Why don't you fight me instead? Come on, I'm ready. Lin Feng's face turned from white to red. He couldn't fight her. Even if he won, he'd lose any chance of winning her over. He spat on the ground in frustration. Zheng Xing, I guess you plan on hiding behind her for the rest of your life. You useless piece of trash. Lin Feng, I said, finally speaking up. If you want a duel, you've got one. Tomorrow at noon, in the golden bamboo forest behind the mountain. We'll settle this properly. Life or death, whatever happens, happens. Linger turned to me, her face pale. Brother Xing, no? Don't do it. She leaned in and whispered urgently in my ear. Lin Feng is at the peak of the spirit-gathering realm. Even I'm not sure I can beat him. You just entered the realm. You're no match for him. I patted her shoulder and gave her a calm look. Don't be scared, Linger. Since I accepted the challenge, I won't back down. Besides, I never fight a battle I haven't prepared for. Lin Feng watched us, his confidence wavering for a split second. Was I hiding my true power? No, that was impossible. He was certain his appraisal of my strength was correct. He convinced himself I was just bluffing to save face. Fine, he smirked. Tomorrow it is. Lin Feng let out a cold sneer. He looked me dead in the eye, his voice dripping with arrogance. Fine, Zheng Xing. We have a deal. If you win, I'll never bother Linger again. But if I win, you stay far away from her. In fact, you better crawl off Qingling Mountain and never show your face again. He didn't wait for an answer. He turned on his heel and walked away, acting like he'd already won. I watched him go, my expression calm, but Linger was far from relaxed. She grabbed my arm, her face pale with worry. Brother Xing, you're being too impulsive, she cried. Lin Feng was clearly trying to provoke you. You're walking straight into his trap. I just smiled and patted her hand. Don't worry about the challenge, Linger. I know what I'm doing. Let's go back. She followed me, but I could feel her doubt. She didn't believe I could win. To her, it was impossible for someone to gain enough strength in a single night to defeat a peak spirit-gathering practitioner. I didn't blame her. But seeing her so worried about me touched my heart. Having someone care for me this much was a luxury I hadn't expected in this life. Back in my room, I sat cross-legged on a meditation mat. I needed a plan. I opened the upper volume of the Nine Heavens manual in my mind. It was a masterpiece of body refinement techniques, containing several powerful spiritual skills. One caught my eye, the soul-shaking punch. This move required a massive physical foundation and a manifested spiritual body. Most cultivators wouldn't dream of meeting those requirements until they were far beyond the spirit-gathering realm. But thanks to my primordial god body, I already had both. I closed my eyes, sinking into a deep meditation. I focused on every detail of the technique, letting the essence of the soul-shaking punch flow into my sea of consciousness until it became a part of me. The next day at noon, the golden bamboo forest behind the mountain was packed. Word had spread fast. Dozens of disciples from our generation had gathered to watch the show. Lin Feng stood in the center of a clearing, surrounded by a group of his sycophants. He looked refreshed, his handsome face glowing with confidence. To him, I was just a fool who had barely stepped into the spirit-gathering realm. He thought I was nothing more than a brute with a bit of physical strength. In the world of cultivators, raw strength was for children. Spiritual power and techniques were what mattered. Senior brother Lin, where is that idiot Zheng Xing? One of the disciples mocked. His brain must be even more broken than we thought. Challenging you? He's looking for death. Lin Feng smirked, crossing his arms. I made a bet with the fool. If I win, he leaves the mountain in shame. It's time we cleared the trash out of Qingling Mountain. That's too easy on him, another chimed in. You should cripple his spiritual body before kicking him out. Lin Feng didn't respond. For a fleeting second, a shadow of doubt crossed his mind. The way I had carried myself yesterday was completely different from the idiot he used to know. Had I found some kind of secret treasure? He shook the thought away. It didn't matter. Just then, I stepped into the clearing. I wasn't wearing my usual rags. I wore a black spiritual robe, and my long black hair was tied back neatly with a gold ribbon. I looked like a completely different person. Lin Feng's eyes narrowed. So, you actually showed up. If you're here to die, don't blame me for being ruthless. I didn't flinch. I pointed right at his nose. Stop barking, Lin Feng. I'm here. Today, I'm going to teach you what happens when you look down on people. You arrogant brat. Lin Feng roared. Fine. If you're so eager for a beating, I'll give you one. He exploded with power. A vibrant green light erupted from his body, and the air around him seemed to thicken, turning heavy and solid. Heaven collapsing punch. He lunged forward, his fist whistling through the air with terrifying force. The wind generated by the strike was so sharp that the onlookers winced, feeling their skin sting. I didn't move until the last second. I planted my feet, flattened my left palm, and clenched my right fist. A deep, ghostly blue light began to glow around my knuckles. The wind from his attack tossed my hair and clothes wildly. Just as his fist reached me, I struck out. The blue light flared brilliantly, meeting his attack head-on. Boom! A massive shockwave ripped through the forest. The sound was deafening. The surrounding disciples gasped, clutching their chests as the pressure made their blood boil. A few weaker students actually fainted on the spot. When the dust settled, the sight was staggering. The bamboo trees for several yards around us had been snapped and leveled as if a hurricane had passed through. But I was still standing. I hadn't moved an inch. Lin Feng's heaven-collapsing punch hadn't even made me blink. Lin Feng tried to keep a calm face, but I saw the flicker of terror in his eyes. He couldn't wrap his head around it. How could a beginner block his strongest move so easily? He didn't stop. He poured more spiritual energy into his fists, launching a second strike, then a third. He kept swinging until he was visibly panting, his breath coming in ragged gasps. I met every single blow with my own fists. No dodging, no retreating, just raw, overwhelming power. The crowd was dead silent. They were witnessing the impossible. I pulled my fist back and looked at him coolly. Is that all you've got, Lin Feng? Because if it is, you might as well give up now. Lin Feng let out a frustrated scream. He reached into his sword bag and pulled out a small, exquisite silver blade. The crowd gasped. It wasn't just a spiritual sword, it was a high-grade flying sword. A treasure like that allowed a cultivator to fly before they even reached the higher realms. It was incredibly rare and expensive. I recognized it immediately. In my past life, I had been obsessed with collecting swords. Even though this was a low-level blade by those standards, it was still a dangerous weapon for someone at my current level. Lin Feng chanted a quick spell and pointed his finger. Sword out. The silver blade began to spin rapidly, hovering above his head like a living creature, ready to strike at his command. He looked at me with a triumphant grin. Zhengxing, it's not too late, he sneered. Kneel down, kowtow, and call me Grandpa, and maybe I'll let you live. I could see the conflict in Lin Feng's eyes. He was terrified. He never expected my strength to be this overwhelming. I had only just entered the Great Spirit realm, yet I had stood my ground against his strongest technique without budging an inch. It defied everything he knew about cultivation. Now, in a moment of desperation, he had pulled out the life-saving flying sword his father had given him. He was stuck. If he didn't use it, he'd be a laughingstock. If he did, he might actually kill me. Qingling Mountain had strict rules. Dueling was allowed, but killing a fellow disciple was a death sentence. The killer would have their cultivation stripped and be expelled from the sect forever. I watched him hesitate and guessed exactly what was rotting in his mind. I wasn't afraid of his sword. I had come prepared for everything. Tiger form. I warred. I didn't wait for him to decide. I launched my attack. My right fist no longer glowed with a faint blue light. Instead, it erupted with a brilliant, blinding gold. As I swung, the energy surged forward and shifted in midair. It transformed into a massive, prowling tiger with its jaws wide open, charging straight for Lin Feng. The crowd erupted in shock. For manifestation, someone yelled. He's actually manifesting his intent. Even for a high-level cultivator, turning raw energy into a physical form was incredibly difficult. For a beginner like me to do it was unthinkable. But they didn't know about my 8 Desolations God body or the 9 Glories heavenly script. The beast soul punch I was using was practically made for me. My physical strength allowed me to push this technique to its absolute limit, making it sharper and more lethal than anyone else could manage. Lin Feng's face went pale. He realized he had completely underestimated me. I wasn't just talking big. I had the power to back it up. Terrified, he stopped holding back and unleashed the flying sword. The silver blade spun wildly, whistling through the air with a chilling shriek as it collided with my golden tiger. A massive explosion rocked the clearing. The sword hacked through the energy, shredding my tiger form into a shower of golden sparks. Lin Feng let out a breath of relief. He had been terrified his trump card would fail, which would have cost him both his life and his dignity. But I wasn't done. Not even close. I threw punch after punch in rapid succession. Crane form, tortoise form, dragon form. Over a dozen different beast spirits flooded the air. Lin Feng's nerves snapped. He thought manifesting one tiger was my limit, but my spiritual energy seemed bottomless. He desperately commanded his sword to intercept the spirit beasts one by one. However, the silver blade was losing its edge. It became sluggish and heavy. Controlling a flying sword drained a massive amount of energy. Even at the peak of the great spirit realm, Lin Feng was hitting his limit. He looked at me, sweat pouring down his face, completely bewildered. He couldn't understand how I wasn't tired yet. In reality, I wasn't doing much better. Despite my special physique and divine techniques, I was still just a beginner. I only had about an hour to maintain this peak state. Once that hour was up, I'd be no better than a commoner, and it would take days to recover. Every powerful technique has a price. I saw the sword falter. I saw the sweat on his brow. It was time to end this. I gathered every last drop of spiritual energy in my body, pushing my physical limits to the breaking point. Ape form, I screamed. Inside my soul, the tiny golden monkey spirit suddenly woke up and grew at an impossible speed. It transformed into a giant, heaven-shaking golden ape. Since I possessed the golden ape god body, this was my ultimate move. The sky above the golden bamboo forest actually changed color, turning from pale blue to a shimmering gold under the sheer pressure of my killing intent. The onlookers backed away, unable to breathe under the weight of the spiritual pressure. The golden energy left my fist and expanded instantly. By the time it reached Lin Feng, it was a 30-foot-tall behemoth. Lin Feng's cronies scrambled in every direction, terrified of being caught in the blast. Lin Feng couldn't run. He was the star of this fight, though he clearly felt like a victim now. He poured every ounce of his soul into his sword, meeting my golden ape head-on. The collision was blinding. A deafening roar shattered the silence of the forest, and the resulting shockwave sent everyone flying backward. Half the bamboo forest was leveled instantly. Lin Feng collapsed, gasping for air. He looked up, searching the sky. He saw a silver object spinning in the air, his flying sword. He let out a weak, bloody smile. He was hurt, but as long as the sword was intact, he hadn't truly lost everything. Then his smile froze. The silver sword wobbled, lost its glow, and fell to the ground with a dull metallic clang. It twitched once, like a dying animal, and then went completely still. No, Lin Feng wailed. He crawled toward it, cradling the cold metal in his arms and sobbing like a child. He could feel it. The connection was gone. The sword spirit was dead. My final punch hadn't just defeated him. It had murdered his treasure. With the sword spirit dead, that flying sword was nothing more than a piece of scrap metal. It was worthless. As the storm of spiritual pressure finally settled, the crowd saw me. I was standing firm, unmoved. Lin Feng, on the other hand, looked like he'd been drained of every drop of soul power. He was collapsed on the ground, wailing over his ruined weapon. The winner was obvious. I looked down at him, my eyes cold. Lin Feng, I said, "Do you still dare to fight?" Terror flickered in his eyes. He couldn't wrap his head around how strong I had become. I was only at the early stages of the spirit-gathering realm. He was at the peak and had a flying sword, yet I had crushed him and murdered his treasure. To him, I wasn't just an opponent anymore. I was a monster. I admit defeat, he stammered, his face pressed against the dirt. The onlookers erupted. Lin Feng was the golden boy of their generation, the top talent among his peers. Seeing him bow his head to a fool like me was a shock they couldn't process. Their gazes shifted toward me, a mix of awe, confusion, and hidden delight. Many of them had been bullied by Lin Feng before. He had always used his father's status as an enshrined elder to oppress anyone who didn't fall in line. Seeing him fall this far was a dream come true for them. Mo Linner rushed to my side. She grabbed my arm, her eyes filled with worry. She hadn't actually expected me to win against a flying sword. She had been ready to risk her life to save me. Now, she realized it wasn't necessary. I was the center of attention, but I didn't want to stay. I didn't say a word. I didn't even drop a parting threat. I just turned and walked away with Mo Linner. The crowd probably thought I didn't think Lin Feng was worth the breath. The truth was much worse. My spiritual energy and physical strength were completely spent. If Lin Feng had gotten up for one more round, I wouldn't have been able to block a single blow. The moment I stepped into my room, I doubled over. A spray of blood hit the floor. I felt incredibly weak. "Brother Xing, what's wrong?" Mo Linner cried, catching me before I fell. "Don't worry," I managed to say, waving her off. "I just overextended myself. A few days of rest, and I'll be fine." I was lying to keep her calm. I knew I was badly hurt. Lin Feng was a peak-level cultivator, after all. Even though I won, the internal damage was severe. At least a fifth of my meridians were snapped, and my spiritual form was battered. But I had a secret. The Nine Heavens tome told me that my 8 Desolations spirit body healed 10, maybe 100, times faster than a normal person. That was the only reason I had dared to push myself that hard. Otherwise, a fight like this would have sidelined me for a year. Mo Linner knew I needed peace. She left a few bottles of healing medicine and quietly walked out. She knew that staying would only distract me from recovery. As soon as the door clicked shut, my legs gave out. I collapsed and lost consciousness. As I lay there, a faint golden light began to radiate from my skin. It started stitching my broken body back together. My physical self was out cold, but my consciousness was wide awake in my sea of soul. Usually, flipping through the Nine Heavens tome took massive mental effort. But in this state, the pages turned effortlessly. I found a new technique in the Golden Scripture section. It was called the Mind Power Sword. It was strange. It involved gathering the stray thoughts produced by a spiritual body and turning them into a physical weapon of intent. I had never heard of something so bizarre, but the tome was a product of a higher civilization. Its paths were beyond anything a normal cultivator could imagine. This fight looked like a tie where we both got hurt, but I knew better. My cultivation had been tempered in the fire of battle. Once I finished healing, I would break through to the middle stage of the spirit-gathering realm. When I finally regained enough strength to move, I swallowed all the healing medicine at once. A thick purple mist rose around me, shot through with golden light. Inside the mist, the shadow of a small golden ape leaped and danced. Meanwhile, in a luxurious hall on another part of Qingling Mountain, a middle-aged man in rich robes was screaming. "What? How is this possible?" "Father, he was too strong," Lin Feng whimpered. He was sprawled on the floor, his legs shaking. "I used everything I had. I couldn't beat him." His father, Lin Yutao, was an enshrined elder and a powerhouse in the God-wandering realm. He was easily one of the top 10 strongest men on the mountain. He looked at his son with pure disgust. Lin Yutao was a legend who had reached high-level cultivation a decade ago. He had broken through to the pulse-opening realm at 17. His son was 20 and still stuck at the peak of spirit gathering. It was embarrassing. "My family has never been disgraced like this," Lin Yutao roared, his face turning a deep crimson, a sign of his 9-yang red dragon technique. "You had a flying sword. You were at the peak level. And you lost to a fool? If you weren't my only blood, I'd strike you dead myself." Lin Feng stayed pressed to the floor, terrified. He knew his father was truly murderous this time. In Qingling Mountain, Lin Yutao's word was law, and right now, that law was full of rage. Lin Feng stayed pressed to the floor, shaking. He knew he had disgraced his father. Even he felt ashamed, let alone a man as prideful and stubborn as Lin Yutao. "Father, please, calm your anger," Lin Feng whispered cautiously. "That fool Yi Xing. The techniques he used weren't simple. I only fought him because he was bullying junior brother Liu. I did my best, but I failed. I know your reputation is at stake. What if I go find third senior brother?" Lin Yutao narrowed his eyes. "You mean Fei Litong?" He went silent for a moment, weighing the idea. Finally, he nodded. Fine, go find him. But make it clear, victory is the only option. He must be fully prepared. If we want to reclaim our honor, it has to be one of my direct disciples who crushes Yixing. Fei Litong was the perfect choice. My rival Lin Feng was one of 6 disciples under Lin Yutao. The first, second, and fourth were currently traveling, having already surpassed my level to reach the pulse-opening realm. That left Fei Litong. He wasn't stuck at the spirit-gathering realm because he was lazy. It was because of his technique, the skyscraper eagle art. He had spent 9 long years absorbing energy from deep underground. Once he finally broke through, he would be nearly invincible among his peers. He was a man who could endure what others couldn't. I had no idea about their little conspiracy. I was too busy focused on my own survival. Inside my room, I was pouring everything into repairing my shattered body. That golden ape spirit inside me was incredibly active. I never realized the spirit body of a cultivator could have this much potential. The 8 Desolation spirit body was a gift from the heavens. Whenever the ape found a blocked meridian, it transformed into a thick golden liquid, surging forward like a battering ram until the path was clear. I had expected my recovery to take a month. Instead, it took only a few days. Suddenly, I felt the spiritual energy stored in my body reach a breaking point. With a single thought, the energy began to swirl. It turned into a small hurricane, washing away the impurities in my marrow. Finally, all that power flowed into the golden ape. The spirit grew larger and more vibrant, leaping around my soul. A warm, comfortable glow spread through my limbs. I looked through the 9 Heavens tome again. It contained countless legendary techniques, but 3 at the very end caught my eye. They were the peak of power. One was called the Heaven Refining Art. To practice it, you needed a divine or celestial body and extraordinary talent. I had the golden ape spirit, one of the 8 desolations. It was a perfect match. As my body finished healing, I felt my cultivation level click into place. I had officially reached the middle stage of the spirit-gathering realm. I could even feel the barrier to the late stage shivering. I realized then the secret of my spirit body. It thrived on combat. It grew stronger by being broken and then rebuilt. Still, I had to be careful. Lin Feng wouldn't just give up. If he sent someone stronger, my current level might not be enough. I decided to stay hidden in my room a bit longer to master new skills. My beast-shaped fist was powerful, but Lin Feng had seen it now. Plus, it drained too much of my stamina. If my opponent survived the initial blow, I'd be a sitting duck. I needed a new trump card. Meanwhile, Lin Feng had reached Fei Litong's quarters. Lin Feng, you're pathetic. Fei Litong barked. He was dressed in black and white robes, pacing back and forth. Why would you even fight a fool like Yixing? And then you lose? To a moron? My God, you can't even beat a simpleton. Lin Feng took the verbal lashing quietly. He and Fei Litong were close, so he knew his brother was just frustrated. Go, Fei Litong commanded, his voice full of arrogance. Go tell Yixing that I, Fei Litong, want to challenge him. If he doesn't show up, tell him he better never show his face on Qingling Mountain again. If I see him, I'll beat him on sight. Fei Litong had always been the star among the disciples. In 1 more year, he'd have enough energy to become the strongest pulse-opening cultivator in the sect. To him, crushing me was like stepping on an ant. Senior brother, Lin Feng said hesitantly. Yixing actually has some skill. That beast-shaped fist is dangerous. He broke my flying sword and... Fei Litong waved him off dismissively. Enough. You think he's stronger than me? If he was that good, why would you be coming to me for help? I'm just worried you'll be caught off guard, Lin Feng muttered. Just go deliver the challenge, Fei Litong said, reaching for a teacup on the table. I'll make that kid regret the day he ever crossed us. He squeezed his hand. The ceramic cup didn't just break, it turned into fine powder. With a casual flick of his finger, he sent the dust flying toward a massive boulder in the courtyard. As the dust hit the stone, the boulder exploded. Then, the shattered pieces exploded again and again, until the entire rock was nothing but a pile of sand. Fei Litong looked at the pile of sand where the boulder used to be and shook his head. He didn't look happy. He muttered that his speed was still too slow, and the execution was barely acceptable. He turned to Lin Feng with a cold smirk. and asked if he thought this would be enough to handle me. Lin Feng's eyes lit up with pure excitement. He gasped, asking if that was the yellow spring illusion technique. He was ecstatic, claiming that if I ran into a move like that, I wouldn't even know how I died. He wanted to run and tell his father immediately, but Fei Litong stopped him. He said the technique wasn't perfect yet. He wanted to master it completely before showing it to their master. The yellow spring illusion technique was one of the most terrifying skills from the skyscraping Eagle Palace. At its peak, the user could use any nearby object as a medium to kill an enemy invisibly. Even though Fei Litong hadn't fully mastered it, he was already dangerous. Lin Feng felt a surge of confidence. Between that technique and the other skills Fei Litong possessed, he was sure I didn't stand a chance. Lin Feng also knew a secret. Because Fei Litong was his father's favorite disciple, he had been given a hidden treasure for protection. It was meant to keep evil spirits away while he absorbed Yin energy, but it was powerful enough to flip the script on any fight. Even if I somehow managed to gain the upper hand, that treasure would ensure Fei Litong's victory. Meanwhile, I was focused. I called out the Mind Power Sword, pouring every ounce of my concentration into the new technique. It wasn't a toy. If I messed up, the blade wouldn't hit my enemy. It would tear through me. I moved with extreme caution, feeling the weight of the power I was wielding. My body began to glow with a soft, white light. A silver orb rose slowly from the top of my head. To a normal person, it just looked like a blurry mess of light. But through my spiritual eyes, I could see it clearly. A small, five-colored sword floating in the center. This was the Mind Power Sword, forged from 5 types of worldly distractions: wandering thoughts, consciousness, resentment, lust, and malice. It was designed to bypass the physical body and strike directly at the spirit, leaving the enemy a hollow, useless shell. Suddenly, my golden monkey spirit jumped out. I immediately retracted the Mind Power Sword back into my body. I knew the sword was specifically designed to destroy spirits, and I couldn't risk it accidentally nicking my own. That would be a disaster I couldn't recover from. With my eyes closed, I began chanting. The golden monkey reached into thin air and pulled out an object that looked like a cross between a lotus and a spike. It glowed with a lush, emerald green light. It was beautiful. I had found this treasure, the emerald lotus heart spike, hidden within the 9 Heavens tome. The book said it belonged to a previous master who left it behind after it became too weak for his level. For me, however, it was perfect, though it cost so much energy I could only use it a few times before running dry. I knew Lin Feng wouldn't let things go. His father, Lin Yutao, was a spirit trek realm cultivator, a level of power I could barely imagine reaching. To a man like that, I was just an ant. But a man of his status couldn't attack a junior like me without ruining his reputation. He would send others to do his dirty work, and they would be much stronger than Lin Feng. I stayed in seclusion, determined to master every trump card I had before stepping outside. While I practiced, Lin Feng was losing his mind. He had come to my house several times, but my courtyard's protection array was active. On Qingling Mountain, these arrays were law. No one could enter without permission. If someone tried to break in, the law enforcement hall would show up instantly. The punishment was 30 strikes with a spirit pole at best, or having your cultivation stripped away at worst. Even as an elder's son, Lin Feng didn't dare cross that line. His father valued face above all else. If he had to bail Lin Feng out for something so stupid, the punishment at home would be even worse. Lin Feng ended up camping outside my door for 10 days. He was a nervous wreck. He sent several voice transmissions through the barrier, but I didn't respond. He started to wonder if I had snuck out and gone somewhere else. On the 11th day, Mo Linner showed up. When she saw Lin Feng lurking there, her face darkened. She asked him what he wanted and if he was really going to keep harassing me over a minor grudge. Lin Feng's heart skipped a beat when he saw her. She was getting more beautiful every day, but her cold glare told him he wasn't welcome. Mo Linner's direct confrontation caught Lin Feng off guard. He stammered, trying to regain his footing. "Sister Linner, what's so good about that Zheng Xin? He's just a lucky fool, a total waste. If I hadn't slipped up that day, he never would have won. You should really reconsider. If you marry me, you'll have everything." "Shut up," Mo Linner snapped, her voice trembling with rage. "Don't say another word. You're a despicable coward, Lin Feng. Me marry you? In your dreams. She was fuming. Everyone knew Lin Feng had a rotten character, but his arrogance was reaching new heights. To her, he was nothing but a toad lusting after a swan. Lin Feng didn't back down. He gave a smug, oily grin. You'd be wise to stay away from that idiot. Being around him will only bring you trouble. Besides, Zheng Xian's little winning streak is about to end. My third senior brother, Fei Litong. He caught himself, realizing he'd said too much, and clamped his mouth shut. Mo Liner was sharp. She caught the name instantly. Fei Litong, you're getting him to deal with Brother Xian? Lin Feng, you are truly shameless. Just as the tension reached a breaking point, a massive, crushing pressure erupted from inside my residence. The air grew heavy, thick with spiritual energy. Mo Liner was at the late stage of the spirit-gathering realm, and Lin Feng was at the peak, yet both of them were suddenly gasping for air. They buckled under the weight of the aura. What is this? Lin Feng choked out. Where is this pressure coming from? They stood frozen, trying to sense the source of the power, when suddenly, it vanished. The suffocating weight lifted as quickly as it had appeared. Lina, you're here. They both whipped their heads toward the voice. I stepped out, dressed in black robes, my long hair catching the wind. I felt different. Before, the original Zheng Xian was seen as a simple-minded kid, but now, there was a sharp edge to my gaze. I looked at Lin Feng and let a small smirk play on my lips. Lin Feng, what are you doing here again? Didn't I teach you enough of a lesson last time? Lin Feng flinched. The arrogance he showed Mo Liner vanished, replaced by genuine wariness. Zheng Xian, I'm just here to deliver a message. My third senior brother heard you beat me and wants to see what you're made of. Same place as usual, the golden bamboo forest in the back mountains. You pick the time. You brave enough? I laughed. Sure. Let's make it tomorrow at noon. I'll be there. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. He looked terrified that I might change my mind and hurried off to report back to Fei Litong before I could utter another word. Mo Liner was frantic, signaling me to stop, but I ignored her. Once he was gone, she grabbed my arm, her face pale. Brother Xian, why did you agree to that? Fei Litong is a madman. He's technically in the spirit-gathering realm, but he's not someone a normal cultivator can fight. She started explaining just how twisted and powerful he was. She told me stories of his past fights, painting a picture of a monster. I realized then that I might have underestimated the help Lin Feng had called in. But I wasn't going to back down. That wasn't my style. I patted her shoulder to calm her down. Don't worry, Liner. I have my reasons. I need a real fight to sharpen my skills. Even if I lose, the experience is worth it. She went quiet, realizing I wasn't looking for a simple win. I wanted to use this guy as a whetstone for my own growth. She couldn't find the words to stop me anymore. I felt a spark of excitement. My mind power sword was starting to take shape, and while I didn't know its full power yet, I knew it wouldn't disappoint. The next day at noon, the golden bamboo forest was packed. Dozens of disciples had gathered to watch. I had become something of a local celebrity, the idiot who suddenly started taking down peak stage cultivators. On the other side was Fei Litong, the strongest spirit-gathering disciple in our generation. People said he only stayed at this level because of his unique technique, the sky-souring eagle art. In reality, he was likely stronger than someone at the pulse-opening realm. Fei Litong sat on a large rock, eyes closed in meditation. A yellow-green glow pulsed around his body. The crowd kept a respectful distance, whispering in hushed tones. Lin Feng was right in the middle of them, bragging loudly. My third senior brother is a god, Lin Feng boasted. Tin Zheng Zins couldn't beat him. I only lost because I was careless. Today he's going to pay. He strutted around like he was the one about to fight. He seemed to have forgotten how he'd crawled away in shame just days ago. Nobody called him out on it, mostly because of his father's status and the terrifying man sitting on the rock behind him. He's here. Zheng Xian is here, someone shouted. Every eye turned toward me. I walked in, still in my black robes, but I had tied my hair back with a gold silk ribbon today. Mo Liner followed behind me, her face a mask of worry. She didn't want me to do this, but at this point, my reputation was on the line. I looked at Fei Litong and cupped my hands in a polite gesture. Senior brother Fei, I've arrived. Fei Litong opened his eyes. He looked me up and down with a cold, unimpressed stare. So you're the one who beat my junior brother? You don't look like much. He glanced back at Lin Feng and grunted. You really lost to this kid? No wonder Master scolded you. Lin Feng's face turned bright red, caught between embarrassment and the hope of seeing me crushed. Lin Feng looked embarrassed, shifting his weight from side to side. Third senior brother, this kid might not look like much, but he's ruthless. Especially those spirit arts of his. Fei Litong cut him off with a look of pure disdain. He turned his gaze back to me, his eyes cold. Since you were bold enough to accept my challenge, don't expect any mercy. Kid, it's not too late to back out now. I couldn't help but laugh. Senior brother Fei, are you the one who wants to back out? Are you trying to use me as an excuse to save face? It's okay. If you're too scared to fight, just say the word. I won't force you. Presumptuous. Fei Litong roared. He pointed a single finger at me. A streak of yellow-green light whistled through the air, moving like a lightning bolt. I didn't flinch. I clenched my fists and channeled every bit of energy I had. Ape King Punch. I bellowed. I swung a heavy blow forward. Golden energy surged from my fist, transforming into the shape of a massive, 10-foot-tall golden ape. It collided head-on with the green light. The impact was blinding. A massive shockwave rippled outward, tearing through the air. The spectators were thrown back, stumbling and falling. The ground seemed to spin beneath their feet. Nobody expected a fight between two spirit-gathering realm cultivators to be this destructive. They looked at me with wide, shocked eyes. They knew Fei Litong was a top-tier genius, but they couldn't understand how I, the man who used to be the village idiot, could match him blow for blow. High above on a side peak, hidden from view, a middle-aged man in green robes watched us. His eyes flickered with interest. Interesting, he muttered to himself. Such power at their level. They remind me of my senior brother and me back in the day. I didn't give Fei Litong a chance to breathe. I launched my counterattack immediately. Beast form punch. A golden phantom of a small monkey appeared above my head, bathing me in a radiant glow. My fist became a blur. I transitioned rapidly between the forms of the dragon, the crane, and the tiger. Each strike sent waves of energy screaming toward Fei Litong. Fei Litong remained seated on his rock, his expression calm. His fingers moved in rapid patterns, forming a series of hand seals. A thin, yellow-green barrier shimmered into existence around him. It looked fragile, like a soap bubble, but as my punches slammed into it, they shattered into harmless sparks. He sat there, steady as a mountain. I saw him smirk. He probably thought I was running out of tricks, but I was just getting started. Hidden within the fading sparks of my last attack, a single needle of golden light appeared. It was different, sharper, faster. Fei Litong sensed the danger instantly. He summoned his spirit phantom, a dark, subterranean deity that radiated a pale yellow light. He poured all that power into his shield. He thought that if he could just block this one trump card, I'd be at his mercy. The golden light exploded against his barrier, splitting into 1,000 tiny needles that hammered against the shield. Fei Litong relaxed. The shield didn't even ripple. He thought Lin Feng had exaggerated my strength. He was wrong. Just as he let his guard down, the scattered golden needles converged. They fused into a single, brilliant purple-red needle that glowed with an eerie light. It pierced through his barrier like it was paper and shot straight for his face. Fei Litong gasped and threw his right hand up to block. The needle tore through his palm and vanished. He stared at his hand. There was a small, purple hole in his flesh, but no blood. No pain. Nothing. I stood back and cupped my hands, a mocking smile playing on my lips. Thank you for the lesson, senior brother. I'm truly sorry for hurting you. Please don't be angry. He glared at me, confused. That spirit art is laced with a lethal toxin. I lied smoothly. If you surrender now, I'll give you the antidote. Fei Litong's face turned purple with rage. You devious little beast. You think a cheap trick like that will make me surrender? Dream on. He reached into his robes, pulled out a small white bottle, and swallowed a red pill. Then, he stood up and grabbed a branch from a nearby bamboo tree. With a single breath, he crushed the branch into a fine, emerald powder. Go, he shouted. The powder flew toward me, carried by a gust of yellow-green wind. It was incredibly fast. I felt a chill down my spine. I sensed the danger immediately and ripped off my black outer robe, throwing it into the path of the powder. The moment my robe touched the dust, it disintegrated into black ash. Illusion art, someone in the crowd screamed. No, that's too strong for a basic illusion, another voice argued. I've seen an elder use this before. It's the Yellow Spring illusion art. Even though Fei Litong's version wasn't as powerful as an elder's, it was still terrifying. I knew I couldn't let that dust touch my skin. The crowd began to buzz, and I could hear the disappointment in their voices. One disciple groaned, complaining that he'd bet 30 green spirit stones on me. Apparently, he'd been saving up for ages, trading silver with Uncle Wong just to get them. His friends mocked him, knowing Uncle Wong's exchange rates were a total scam. They already thought I was finished. Back in the center of the clearing, Fei Litong didn't give me a second to breathe. The yellow spring powder swirled like a toxic cloud, closing in on me from every angle. I dodged and twisted, my feet barely touching the ground as I tried to stay out of its reach. But Fei Litong was relentless. He pushed harder, tightening the circle of deadly dust until I was backed into a corner. High above on the side of Qingling Mountain, a man in a green robe watched us. He looked confused. He couldn't understand why I was still fighting, why I hadn't just shouted surrender yet. To him, I looked like a cornered animal waiting for the final blow. But I wasn't done. Just as the dust was about to coat my skin, I flicked my wrist. A brilliant emerald light shot out from my sleeve. It hit the yellow spring powder with such force that the cloud shattered, scattering in every direction. The powder tried to reform, but the green light was too fast, cutting through it again and again. Suddenly, that emerald light split in two. One half transformed into a lush green lotus, and the other into a sharp, crystalline awl. This was the true form of my treasure, the emerald lotus heart awl. It was a perfect balance of offense and defense. The lotus expanded instantly, its petals opening wide to swallow the yellow spring powder whole. It trapped the toxic dust inside its core, hovering in place like a cage. With the threat neutralized, I pointed my fingers, and the heart all streaked toward Fei Litong's face, tearing through the air with a high-pitched whistle. Fei Litong's eyes widened. He realized he was in real trouble. He gritted his teeth and his hands became a blur, weaving complex seals in the air. I recognized those movements. He was breaking a seal. The guy had a hidden trump card. I couldn't stop to think about it. I poured all my focus into the heart awl, driving it forward with everything I had. If he had a secret weapon, I just had to hit him before he could use it. Arg! Fei Litong roared. His spirit body, the underworld god, manifested above his head. This time, it wasn't empty-handed. It held a pitch-black circular shield. Just as my awl was inches from his skull, the shield rose up and blocked the strike. The impact was deafening. My awl, which could pierce through solid rock, was stopped dead. It couldn't move an inch. My heart sank. That shield was stronger than my emerald lotus. I hadn't expected him to have something this powerful, but then I remembered his master was a high-level cultivator in the spirit trek realm. Of course he'd have top-tier gear. The fight reached a fever pitch. The lotus was shaking violently, struggling to contain the thrashing powder inside. On the other side, my awl was locked in a stalemate with his shield. Fei Litong changed his hand signs again. The black shield began to glow with a sinister dark light. Suddenly, sharp blades clicked out from the edges of the rim. It wasn't just a shield, it was a giant, spinning saw. It began to rotate faster and faster, grinding against my awl until it knocked it aside. Then, the bladed shield launched itself straight at me. I felt the pressure before it even reached me. This weapon had been refined inside his spirit body for years. It was coated in the signature yellow-green glow of his sect's cultivation technique. I did the math in my head. If I tried to block that thing with my awl, my treasure would be smashed to pieces. I made a choice. I didn't care if the awl broke. I commanded it to throw itself at the shield, desperate to slow it down for just a few seconds. Then, I closed my eyes and whispered, "Mind power sword, out." A tiny, five-colored sword erupted from the top of my head, spinning like a top. This was a race against time. If my mind power sword could wound Fei Litong first, I'd win. If his shield reached me first, I was a dead man. The emerald all clattered against the spinning shield, sparks flying everywhere as it struggled to hold the line. It was buckling under the weight. I focused every ounce of my mental energy into the five-colored sword. I felt it reach its peak power. I snapped my fingers together and pointed at Fei Litong. Go! The sword vanished, leaving a trail of wind in its wake. Fei Litong saw it coming. He panicked, throwing out every spell and light shield he knew. He was desperate, trying to stack every defense in his arsenal to stop that tiny blade. The spectators saw the killing intent in the air and scrambled backward, terrified of the coming explosion. Fei Litong gathered a mass of yellow-green energy between his hands, the size of a human head. As my sword approached, the energy twisted and morphed into a hideous, screaming skull. This was his ultimate move, the yellow spring ghost head. He bit his finger and smeared a drop of blood onto the skull's forehead. Its eyes snapped open, glowing a deep, bloody red. It let out a piercing shriek and flew toward my sword. I could feel the raw, evil power radiating from that thing. I wasn't going to risk a head-on collision. With a flick of my mind, I commanded the mind power sword to swerve. It looped around the screaming ghost head in a tight arc, diving straight for Fei Litong's throat. Fei Litong saw my mind power sword bypass his ghost head and screamed toward him. He didn't panic. Instead, he instantly threw up a defensive barrier of spiritual energy. It was a solid move, but he didn't understand what he was fighting. My mind power sword wasn't made of ordinary energy. It was forged from the raw, chaotic thoughts of the mortal world. It didn't even slow down. The blade slipped through his barrier like it wasn't even there. Fei Litong's eyes nearly popped out of his head. He twisted his body, barely dodging the initial strike, but the sword was locked onto him. It clung to his movements like a shadow. Just as it was about to pierce his chest, the yellow spring ghost head shrieked back across the clearing to intercept. It forced itself between the blade and its master. I wasn't done. With a sharp mental command, I split the mind power sword into 5 distinct streaks of light. 3 of them swarmed the ghost head, keeping it occupied in a blur of clashing energy. The other 2, the blades of praise and evil, shot straight for Fei Litong. He was fast, but not fast enough. The 2 streaks of light caught him in an instant, sinking deep into his body and vanishing. To the crowd, it looked like nothing had happened. Only I could see those 2 slivers of consciousness burrowing into his soul. Fei Litong froze. He stood there, rigid as a statue. A few seconds passed in total silence. Then, a sickening grinding sound echoed from inside his chest. He was fighting the internal invasion, his face contorting with the effort. He pointed a trembling finger at me, commanding the ghost head to make one final play. The screaming skull broke away from my other 3 blades and dove into his spinning shield. The shield erupted with a sickly yellow-green light. My emerald awl, which had been holding the line, began to hiss and sizzle. Fine cracks raced across its surface. I gritted my teeth, pouring everything I had into the remaining 3 sword lights and driving them straight into Fei Litong's unmoving form. The spectators held their breath. Nobody dared to make a sound. We were both at our limits, and the next few seconds would decide who lived and who died. Then came a sharp crack. My emerald all finally shattered under the pressure of the shield. The force of the explosion hit me like a runaway mountain. I was thrown backward, tumbling through the air for dozens of feet before slamming into the dirt. Pain flared through my chest. I checked my internal state and realized I had several injuries, but none of them were fatal. I was shocked. A hit like that should have broken every bone in my body. My 8 Desolation spirit body was even tougher than I imagined. I looked up just as the shield came flying toward me for the kill. I braced myself, but suddenly, the shield lost all its glow. It clattered to the ground, dead and useless. I sat up, panting, and saw Fei Litong collapsed in the dirt. He had used the last of his consciousness to launch that final strike before blacking out. Without his mental support, his weapons were just scrap metal. I struggled to my feet, my movements stiff and painful. I looked at the shards of my emerald awl and then at the unconscious man across the field. I felt a strange sense of relief. Fei Litong was actually stronger than me, but his arrogance was his undoing. He never expected me to have a move he couldn't block. I won because of a bit of luck and a lot of his pride. Mo Linner rushed to my side, her hands trembling as she tried to steady me. I waved her off with a tired smile. I was hurt, but I could still stand. Is this real? Someone whispered in the crowd. Yi Xing, he actually beat Senior Brother Fei? The silence broke into a roar of disbelief. They had expected me to be carried out in a casket, yet here I was, standing over the fallen genius of the sect. Lin Feng was shaking, her face pale and drenched in cold sweat. She looked like she'd seen a ghost. I knew it, one disciple shouted, jumping for joy. I put everything on Yixing. 8-to-1 odds. I just made 200 spirit stones. The excitement was cut short by a sound like a rolling thunderclap. A streak of intense, crimson firelight shot down from a nearby peak, tearing through the air with a deafening boom. It slammed into the ground right next to Fei Litong. As the flames dissipated, a middle-aged man in lavish robes appeared. His eyes were cold as ice as he looked down at his fallen student. "It's Elder Lin," the crowd gasped. "He's actually here." Fear rippled through the onlookers. No matter how strong I was nothing compared to an enshrined elder in the spirit-wandering realm. Lin Yutao glanced at his daughter, Lin Feng. "What are you waiting for? Get this useless trash out of here," he snapped, gesturing to Fei Litong. Then, he turned his gaze on me. He stared for a long time, a slow, predatory smile spreading across his face. "So, you are Yixing," he said smoothly. "A true young hero. How about this? Leave your current master and join my faction. I promise I will treat you well." I didn't have to think about it. "I appreciate the offer, Elder Lin," I said, keeping my voice steady. "But I owe everything to Master Tianlong. I have no intention of leaving him." The smile vanished instantly. Lin Yutao's face turned stone cold. "In that case," he hissed, "I suppose it's time we settle the debt you owe for what you did to my daughter and my disciple." I tightened my grip. The man was a snake. He flipped his mood faster than a page in a book, but I knew the real fight was only just beginning. If I had accepted his offer, the defeat of Lin Feng and Fei Litong would have been a simple rivalry between fellow disciples. No one could have said a word. But I had rejected him flatly, and for a man like Lin Yutao, that was a slap in the face. Even if he cared about his reputation, he wasn't going to let me walk away unscathed. If he didn't make me suffer, his disciples would never be able to hold their heads up in the Qingling Mountains again. Lin Yutao was calculating, but he had forgotten one thing. He was an enshrined elder in the spirit-wandering realm. If word got out that he was bullying a junior in the spirit-gathering realm, he would be the laughingstock of the sect. But rage had blinded him. He wanted to grind my bones to dust right then and there. The sect laws forbade private duels, and an elder attacking a disciple was an even bigger taboo. He knew he could only give me a small taste of pain for now. He'd save the rest for later, sending his best students to harass me until his family's honor was restored. Lin Yutao narrowed his eyes at me. His right hand suddenly erupted with a blinding, fiery light. Just as he was about to strike, his arm froze. It looked like an invisible force had clamped down on him. He struggled, his face twisting with shock, until he finally wrenched his arm free from the phantom grip. He stared at me, his eyes filled with genuine terror. If I was the one who had just pinned a spirit-wandering realm expert with pure willpower, I was a monster. No spirit-gathering cultivator should be capable of that. It was unheard of. "No, that's not right," he muttered. Even the most gifted genius couldn't bridge that gap. He whipped his head around, searching the sky and the surrounding trees for whoever was playing games with him. "Elder Lin," a voice drifted through the air, calm and steady. "Let the children settle their own fights. Is there really a need for you to step in personally?" The voice arrived before the man did. We all looked up toward the golden bamboo forest on the back mountain. A figure in pale green robes drifted down from the peaks. With a few elegant flashes of movement, a handsome man with a high topknot appeared in front of Lin Yutao. I recognized him immediately. He was the mysterious cultivator I'd sensed watching my fight from the shadows earlier. The crowd of disciples gasped. Simultaneously, they all dropped to their knees. "Greetings, sect master." The man didn't seem to care for the formality. He waved a hand dismissively. "Stand up. If there's nothing else to see, everyone clear out. Now." The command was absolute. Within seconds, the swarms of onlookers vanished, leaving the clearing empty. This was Li Tianxing, the man who ruled the entire Qingling mountain range. I had heard stories of his legendary power, but I had never seen him in the flesh. I couldn't understand why a legend like him would show up for a petty squabble between low-level disciples. Even more confusing was why he was helping me. The old, Yi Xing had a strange brain. Unless someone was a close friend or a mortal enemy, he usually forgot they existed. I searched my memories, but I drew a total blank on the sect master. Lin Yutao bowed stiffly to Li Tianxing. Greetings, sect master. I didn't know you were coming. I was simply trying to teach this boy a lesson about arrogance. I didn't think it would require your attention. There was a hint of resentment in Lin Yutao's voice. Li Tianxing's expression chilled instantly. Lin Yutao, I treat you with respect because you are an enshrined elder, Li Tianxing said. But do not forget yourself. Do the sect laws allow an elder to question the actions of the sect master? That was a heavy accusation. Lin Yutao flinched. The rumors said the sect master was detached and indifferent to worldly matters, but seeing him angry was a different story. Lin Yutao knew better than to push further. If the sect master decided to make his life difficult, he and his students would be finished. I wouldn't dare, Lin Yutao said, swallowing his pride. Today's matter is settled. I will restrain my disciples and ensure they don't trouble this young man again. You have my word. Li Tianxing nodded, satisfied. Good. These spirit-gathering disciples are the foundation of our future. If every high-level cultivator treated them the way you just did, what future would Qingling Mountain have? Lin Yutao was baffled. Who was I to this man? Why was he protecting me so fiercely? Li Tianxing was known for leaving the sect's daily affairs to the functional elders while he focused on his own path. Why would he waste his breath on a nobody like me? Lin Yutao probably wondered if I was the sect master's secret love child. Realizing he had lost this round, Lin Yutao made a hasty excuse and left. He didn't go back to his own quarters. Instead, he headed straight for the cave of his close friend, Qin Shenglan. Qin was another enshrined elder and a known busybody who knew every secret within the sect. After hearing the story, Qin Shenglan laughed and sipped his spirit tea. My friend, your instincts are right. Li Tianxing wouldn't protect the boy without a very specific reason. But no, he's not the sect master's son. He set his cup down and leaned in. Tell me, have you heard of the 4 most powerful figures in our mountains? Lin Yutao thought for a moment. The sect master is one. The great elder, Mr. Donglin, is another. My senior brother, Bai Yutong, is the third. I'm not sure who the fourth is. I don't think I've met them. Qin Shenglan smiled. That's because it was 8 years ago when your brother brought your faction here. You missed the history. Qin Shenglan loved to play games and keep people guessing. Lin Yutao knew this, so he waited patiently, nudging his friend to finally get to the point. Qin Shenglan straightened his posture and his face turned serious. He told Lin Yutao that the 4th figure was a man named Zheng Tianlong. He was the undisputed #1 cultivator of Qingling Mountain. Even the great elder, Mr. Donglin, stood no chance against him in a fight. Zheng Tianlong was the living banner of our entire sect. Lin Yutao was stunned. He had heard the name before, but he never realized the man was that powerful. A cold realization hit him. The name Zheng was far too familiar. He looked at Qin Shenglan with wide eyes, wondering if I was Zheng Tianlong's son. Qin Shenglan read his mind and laughed. He told Lin Yutao he was wrong, but not by much. I wasn't his biological son. I was an orphan Zheng Tianlong had picked up from the outside world. To him, I was both a disciple and an adopted son. Then came the real bombshell. Li Tianxing, the current sect master, was actually Zheng Tianlong's junior brother. In fact, Li Tianxing only sat on the sect master's throne because Zheng Tianlong had personally put him there. Lin Yutao finally understood. It wasn't a small matter to the sect master at all. Li Tianxing hadn't just stepped in to protect a random disciple. He was protecting his senior brother's legacy and his family's face. Lin Yutao admitted he had been reckless. He cursed his own son, Lin Feng, for dragging him into this mess. Qin Shenglan just smiled and told him to let it go. He said elders shouldn't involve themselves in the grudges of the younger generation. He even suggested that Li Tianxing had done Lin Yutao a favor by stopping him. If Lin Yutao had actually attacked me, he would have lost all respect in the sect. Lin Yutao nodded, finally seeing the logic, though a seed of resentment toward the sect master still lingered in his heart. Suddenly, a jade pendant at his waist flared with a bright crimson light. It vibrated violently, signaling an urgent warning. Qin Shenglan looked confused, but Lin Yutao's face erupted in joy. His senior brother was back. Meanwhile, back in the green bamboo forest, I was quietly observing the sect master. Li Tianxing didn't act like a powerful leader. He dressed simply, almost looking like a common cultivator. The only striking thing about him was his face. He was incredibly handsome, so much so that he could actually rival Mo Liner in looks. I felt a pang of envy. In this body, I looked like a rough, clumsy brute. I wasn't happy about it. Li Tianxing finally spoke. He looked at me and Mo Liner and noted that our master had been gone for a long time. He asked why we hadn't come to him for help during our struggles. He reminded us that even if he wasn't the sect master, he was still our direct martial uncle. A wave of clarity washed over me. This was a detail the original Yi Xing had apparently forgotten or suppressed over time. It explained everything. It explained why a man of his status would risk offending an enshrined elder just to stand up for a lowly spirit-gathering disciple like me. Mo Liner bowed respectfully. She explained that our master had given us strict orders before he left. He told us not to disturb the sect master's meditation unless it was a matter of life and death. Li Tianxing's expression shifted. He looked up at the sky and whispered to himself, wondering where his senior brother was. He looked lonely for a moment, but the look vanished as quickly as it appeared. He commanded us to come to his cave dwelling if we ever faced trouble again. He specifically mentioned Lin Yutao and his followers. He told us that our safety was a matter of honor for our entire lineage. Mo Liner and I exchanged a glance and bowed. We promised to obey. Li Tianxing nodded, satisfied. He tossed me a small white bottle and vanished into a blur of starlight. I opened the bottle and a strange, sweet fragrance filled the air. Inside were 3 pale yellow pills. Mo Liner gasped. She recognized them as heavenly fragrance pills, legendary healing medicine. She said as long as a person was still breathing, 1 pill could bring them back from the brink of death. She had only ever seen them once with our master. I didn't hesitate. I took 1 pill and swallowed it. It melted instantly, tasting like flowers. A warm current surged through my dantian and spread to my limbs. It felt like soaking my bones and meridians in a hot spring. It was incredible. Just 1 pill healed more than half of my internal injuries. Mo Liner beamed, happy to see me looking stronger. She told me only the great cauldron of the sect ancestors could refine such pills. We were lucky to have a martial uncle so generous. As we talked, the ground beneath our feet began to tremble. Then, a massive vibration shook the forest. A piercing, arrogant laugh echoed through the sky, loud enough to burst eardrums. A streak of crimson light shot across the heavens toward the main peak. The color of that light felt familiar. It hit me. It was the exact same flame color Lin Yutao had used when he tried to attack me. Only this was 1,000 times more powerful. A bad feeling settled in my gut. I wondered if the person flying toward the peak was connected to Lin Yutao. Mo Liner asked me what I was thinking. I shook it off and told her I was just dreaming of the day I could reach that level of power. She looked a bit dazed too, wondering who the person in the red light could be. I sighed and told her I didn't know, suggesting we just head back. The next morning, right after I finished my meditation, I found a transmission talisman left by a sect servant. It wasn't just for me. It was a summons for every disciple in the mountain. Every disciple in the sect had received the same message. The content of the transmission talisman was simple but firm. It was an order from the sect leader himself. All disciples at the middle stage of the spirit-gathering realm or higher were to gather immediately at the Yanwu Arena on the main peak of Mount Qingling. Failure to attend without a valid reason would result in severe punishment. I felt a flicker of doubt. Usually, the sect leader didn't bother with the daily affairs of spirit-gathering disciples. For him to personally issue an order meant something big was happening. I couldn't afford to be careless. The deadline was fast approaching, so I rushed toward the main peak. I wasn't at the level where I could fly yet, but my gold element spirit body made me incredibly fast. I reached the peak in no time. Along the way, I saw crowds of disciples heading in the same direction. The usual chatter and laughter were gone. Everyone looked solemn and grave. Even those who recognized me only gave a stiff nod before hurrying toward the arena. If this were any other day, the people who saw my fight with Fei Lidong would have been buzzing with gossip. Their silence made my heart hammer against my ribs. I thought back to that streak of crimson light from yesterday. Was it an enemy coming to provoke Mount Qingling? But that didn't make sense. If a powerful cultivator wanted to cause trouble, Why summon a bunch of low-level disciples? When I arrived at the Yanwu arena, the sight took my breath away. It was a sea of people. At least hundreds of disciples were packed into the space. I spotted Mo Linner waving at me from the crowd and quickly pushed my way to her side. I asked her what was going on. She leaned in and whispered into my ear. She told me the annual opening of the Linglong Forbidden Land was only a few days away. We were called here to select the disciples who would enter. Only the best of the best would be chosen. I was confused. I asked her what the Linglong Forbidden Land was and why it only involved spirit-gathering disciples. Mo Linner explained that the Forbidden Land was a sacred site shared by Mount Qingling, Dongling Island, and the Qingmu sect. It was rich with spiritual energy and rare treasures. Hundreds of years ago, during the Great Spirit Demon War, the place was ravaged and looted. Even now, it hadn't recovered even a tenth of its former glory. Over time, it became a trial ground for the three sects to test their elite disciples. Passing the trial was the only way to earn the right to enter the pulse-opening realm. 4 low-level cultivators. That realm was the true gateway to the world of cultivation. It laid the foundation for everything. She warned me that only about 10 or 20% of those who entered actually succeeded in breaking through. The rest were either eliminated or spent the rest of their lives as mundane disciples. Their path to power would be effectively cut off forever. I realized then how high the stakes were. Without passing this trial, I wouldn't get the pulse-opening pill necessary for the breakthrough. Advancing without it was practically impossible. I sighed, thinking about how complicated human cultivators made things. In the demon race, conditions were equal for everyone. Any demon seeking a breakthrough would receive a demonic empowerment. As long as you had the talent, you moved up. It was no wonder the humans were almost wiped out during the war centuries ago. They loved their rules and restrictions too much. If they hadn't made a deal with the Yao race, trading away lands west of Tianjing Mountain for military support, humanity would have been extinct by now. I shook my head to clear those thoughts. History didn't matter right now. Survival and strength did. I had to get a spot in that trial. Out of the hundreds of disciples standing here, the sect leader would only handpick a few. If I missed this chance, I'd have to wait an entire year. The old Yixing was considered a fool, so nobody ever expected him to participate. But I wasn't that person anymore. In this arena, I doubted anyone could claim to be stronger than me. Not far away, Lin Feng pointed at me. He whispered to Fei Litong, mocking my presence. Fei Litong's eyes burned with pure malice. He muttered that I had quite a reputation lately and would definitely get a spot. Then he added a chilling thought. If I died inside the Forbidden Land, no one would question it. People died in there every year. Lin Feng looked startled. He asked if Fei Litong really intended to kill me inside the trial, worried about my powerful spirit techniques. Fei Litong just nodded coldly. He told Lin Feng not to worry. He had visited his uncle after his return and already had a foolproof plan to end my life. I felt their eyes on me. I knew they hadn't given up. They were like vultures waiting for a moment of weakness. I made a silent vow. If they tried anything, I wouldn't show them an ounce of mercy. Suddenly, a group of people emerged from the main hall. Leading them was Li Tianxing, the sect leader of Mount Qingling. He wore a flowing white robe and moved with an air of effortless grace. Behind him followed the sect elders, including the vengeful Lin Yutao. Li Tianxing stood before the crowd and addressed us. He announced that the Linglong Forbidden Land trial was about to begin. This year, like always, we would compete alongside Dongling Island and the Qingmu sect. There were only 90 spots in total. Because Mount Qingling had so many talented disciples this year, they would only be selecting 30 of us to represent the sect. The rest would have to wait until next year. The atmosphere shifted instantly. Every disciple knew what this meant. We had to fight for our spots. A senior elder stepped forward to read the rules and the order of the matches. The main rule was simple: stop before causing serious injury. There was no point in crippling our own peers before the real trial even began. Or so they said. I looked at Fei Litong and knew that for some, the rules didn't matter at all. I want to guarantee 2 spots in the Linglong Forbidden Land. What do you think? A voice boomed from the distance like a massive bronze bell. It carried a searing, fiery pressure that swept across the field. The heat hit me before the person even arrived. A figure landed right in front of sect leader Li Tianxing and the elders. As the flames dissipated, I saw an old man with snow-white hair and a beard. He was round and stout with a face so red it looked like he'd been drinking spirit wine for days. Every movement he made oozed authority. The aura radiating from him was suffocating. Even the sect leader's presence paled in comparison. This man was clearly on a different level. It was no wonder he spoke to Li Tianxing with such a lack of respect. Li Tianxing looked conflicted. "Brother Bai," he said hesitantly. "This seems inappropriate. It goes against the rules." The old man let out a dry laugh. "Rules? Sect leader Li, times have changed. I just returned from the Tusu battlefield, a place of endless slaughter. No one in Mount Qingling dares to deny that I am the strongest here now. Rules are made by people. People are alive, but rules are dead. Do I not have the status to change them? Brother Bai, why trouble the sect leader over such a small matter? I'll make the call. Let's do it your way." Another voice drifted down. A streak of blue and white light descended. Another white-haired elder appeared. He was the complete opposite of the first man, gaunt, thin as a rail, and looking like a stiff breeze might blow him over. Li Tianxing stepped forward. "Elder Dongling." The frail-looking elder waved a hand dismissively. "Sect leader, give me some face. Agree to Brother Bai's request. He is the top power of our mountain now. It would be embarrassing to deny him such a small favor." Li Tianxing sighed. He looked relieved. "Fine. Since Elder Dongling has spoken, I will agree. Brother Bai, who are these two young talents you're sponsoring?" I realized then that Elder Dongling had actually saved the sect leader's reputation. If Li Tianxing had refused, he would have made a powerful enemy. If he had given in immediately, he would have looked weak in front of all the disciples. By stepping in, Dongling shifted the tension and allowed the sect leader to save face. The red-faced elder Bai realized he'd been played a bit, but he couldn't keep pushing without looking like a bully. He shot a glare at Elder Dongling and grunted. "The two I'm talking about are my nephew's sworn brothers, Fei Litong and his junior, Lin Feng. Their power is exceptional. They shouldn't have to waste time fighting common disciples for a spot." Elder Dongling stroked his white beard. "Is that so? I heard that not long ago, these two were defeated in a duel. Both of them, by the same person. Is that true, Brother Bai?" Elder Bai's face turned an even deeper shade of red. "Fei Litong was ambushed by a coward. But since I've returned, I've taught him a few things. He isn't the same man he was before." Li Tianxing knew he couldn't push back any further. Elder Bai had a legendary temper. Even if the sect leader and Elder Dongling teamed up, they probably couldn't beat him. "Very well," Li Tianxing said reluctantly. "Fei Litong and Lin Feng are officially granted entry to the Linglong Forbidden Land." Elder Bai let out a cold snort. "Good. At least you're being straightforward now. I'll remember this favor." With that, he transformed into a streak of fire and soared toward the back of the main peak. The pressure he left behind was so intense that the surrounding disciples finally started breathing again. They began to whisper frantically. I leaned in and whispered to Mo Linner. "Who is that old guy? He's incredibly arrogant." "That's Fei Litong's uncle," she whispered back, her eyes wide. "He's been at the Tusu battlefield for years. He just got back. They say he's a killing machine. Before he left, he was at the middle stage of the spirit trekking realm, just like the sect leader. Now, people think he's even stronger than Elder Dongling. He might have reached the Jade Pavilion realm." My heart skipped a beat. The Jade Pavilion realm? To jump that many levels in just a few years meant that Tusu battlefield was a terrifying place. "Shoo," Mo Linner urged, putting a finger to her lips. "It's just a rumor. Don't repeat it, or we'll get in trouble." Just then, the officiating elder called out. "Next match, Yixing versus Tai Luohan on stage 1. Su, and you on stage 2. The crowd surged toward my stage. Everyone wanted to see the man who had become the talk of the spirit-gathering disciples. But when they saw me, looking like a rugged, unrefined brood in this body, the female disciples looked disappointed. Most of them wandered off to find prettier fighters to watch. Only Mo Linner stayed, cheering at the top of her lungs. "Go, Brother Xing. You've got this." Most of the men stayed too, but they were mostly staring at Mo Linner. My opponent stepped onto the stage. He was a massive, bearded man who looked exactly like his name, the Iron Arhut. He cupped his fists toward me. "Please," he said gruffly. He wasn't one for small talk. Neither was I. It was time to fight. I looked at the massive man standing across from me. Tai Luohan was a brute, but he had a surprisingly calm aura. He wasn't here to talk. He was here to fight. I respected that. I took a deep breath, centering my mind and steadying my breath. I raised my left hand, slowly forming a fist as I gathered my strength. A faint, golden glow began to shimmer around my knuckles. This was the beast form fist. With a sudden burst of power, I threw the punch. Phantoms of various savage beasts roared into existence, charging toward Tai Luohan with terrifying speed. My mastery over this technique had grown significantly. It was sharper and far more lethal than before. The sheer force of the wind from my strike sent the surrounding disciples stumbling back like small trees caught in a hurricane. Tai Luohan's expression turned dead serious. He let out a guttering roar and crossed his hands, forming claws that slammed together. "Great wind palm," he bellowed. A massive white tornado erupted from his palms, spiraling forward to meet my spectral beasts. The collision was violent. When the fist shadows hit the wind, a massive shockwave rippled through the air. The sky itself seemed to darken, the clouds churning from the raw energy being unleashed. Everyone's eyes turned toward our stage. When they realized it was me fighting, the shock faded into a sort of grim acceptance. They knew I was capable of causing this kind of chaos. But as I felt the resistance from his palms, I realized I had underestimated him. I thought Lin Feng and Fei Litong were the only real threats among the spirit-gathering disciples, but Tai Luohan was a monster in his own right. There's always a bigger fish, I reminded myself. From the edge of the crowd, Lin Feng watched us with eyes full of venom. "Senior brother," he muttered to Fei Litong. "Yi Xing is showing off again. Is he really the strongest among us?" Fei Litong let out a cold, sinister laugh. "Not necessarily. I think Tai Luohan has the edge. Just watch." He reached into his storage bag and pulled out a pitch-black orb. It pulsed with a faint, eerie green mist, twitching in his palm as if it were alive. "What is that?" Lin Feng asked, stepping back. The aura coming off that thing made his skin crawl. "My uncle brought this back from the Tusu battlefield," Fei Litong whispered, his grin widening. "He took it from a fallen demon general. It's called a soul-refining pill. If a cultivator consumes it, or if it's forced into them, they briefly turn into a berserk demonic practitioner. Their power skyrockets. I'm going to use it to finish Yi Xing." Lin Feng looked horrified. "You mean you're going to use it on Tai Luohan?" He couldn't believe Fei Litong would sacrifice an innocent fellow disciple just to settle a grudge. By the time the pill wears off, Tai Luohan will be a broken man, a useless husk, Fei Litong sneered. "But I don't care. Today, Yi Xing either dies or becomes a cripple." He began chanting a strange, twisted incantation. It didn't sound human. It was dark, jagged, and cold. "Soul-refining pill. Go." With a flick of his finger, the black pill shot through the air, hidden by the chaos of our clashing energies, and streaked toward Tai Luohan. At that moment, Tai Luohan was locked in a stalemate with me, pouring everything into his great wind palm. I felt relaxed, waiting for the perfect opening to end the fight without killing him. I didn't want to reveal all my trump cards before entering the Linglong Forbidden Land. Suddenly, Tai Luohan's face contorted. His body jerked violently. A strange, gurgling sound came from his throat, and thick veins began to bulge across his forehead like writhing snakes. A dark, greenish-black mist started seeping out of his pores. His muscles swelled, doubling in size within seconds. My heart sank. I had seen it during my time among the demons. It was the mark of a soul-refining pill. This was bad. I didn't have the power at my current level to reverse the transformation. Tai Luohan let out a deafening, inhuman scream. He bent his legs and launched himself at me like a bolt of lightning. In this demonic state, his physical strength was off the charts. If he hit me, I'd be crushed. I didn't hesitate. I pushed my internal energy to the limit, my body glowing with a pale gold light. The phantom of a small golden monkey appeared on my forehead as I channeled every ounce of spiritual power into my hands. Ape-form fist. A massive golden giant, 10 feet tall, materialized behind me and threw a punch that seemed to shake the very foundations of the arena. It collided head-on with the charging Tai Luohan. The explosion of light was blinding. A thunderous boom echoed across the sect grounds, forcing the spectators to shield their eyes. When the light finally faded, the golden giant was gone. Tai Luohan stood in the center of the stage, motionless. I didn't relax for a second. I knew the soul-refining pill wouldn't be defeated that easily. Sure enough, Tai Luohan's fingers twitched. He let out a low, animalistic growl. He looked even more enraged now, his eyes glowing a deep, bloody red. He lunged again, faster than before. I noticed a thin trail of blood leaking from the corner of his mouth. My previous hit had hurt him, but the pill was forcing his body to ignore the pain. He was burning through his life force, his potential being squeezed out to power this demonic form. His true spirit was being buried deep inside a cage of dark energy, and if I didn't stop him soon, there would be nothing left of the man to save. I looked at the rampaging Tai Luohan and felt a cold calm settle over me. I smiled faintly. I raised my hand, extending a single finger toward him. A streak of crimson light shot from my fingertip like a needle, piercing the air and driving straight into Tai Luohan's forehead. The moment the light touched him, it vanished into his eyes. It was as if he'd been struck by an invisible mountain. His massive body collapsed, tumbling across the stage like a kite with its string cut. He hit the floor hard. Red and dark green flickers of energy pulsed erratically across his skin, occasionally clashing with bursts of white light. Then, he went completely still. He looked dead. In the stands, Fei Litong stared in disbelief. His face went pale. Impossible, he muttered. That was a soul-refining pill. How could a brat like Yi Xing defeat someone powered by that? Beside him, Lin Feng looked shaken. Senior brother, maybe we should just drop this, Lin Feng whispered, his voice trembling. You used a demonic soul-refining pill on a fellow disciple in front of everyone. If the sect leader and the elders find out, this won't end well for us. Fei Litong brushed him off with a dismissive wave. Shut up, Lin Feng. You're just terrified of Yi Xing. I'm not. With my uncle backing me, what can the sect leader or the elders even do? Strength is everything. To my uncle, they're nothing but clowns. He was effectively insulting Lin Feng's own father, the enshrined elder Lin Yutao, but Lin Feng didn't dare show any anger. He just swallowed his pride. I know, senior brother, but this will make things difficult for Elder Bai. We should stop now. Stop. Fei Litong sneered. How can I stop? Once the soul-refining pill is consumed, there's no turning back. You have to wait for the medicine to wear off on its own. Even if I wanted to help him, it's too late. He spoke with total indifference, as if Tai Luohan's life meant nothing. Lin Feng gasped. What? There's no cure? Are we just going to watch him die? If you want to help him, go ahead, Fei Litong snapped. I don't have the time. He turned and walked away, acting like he owned the place. He knew his plan to ruin me had failed, and he wasn't going to waste another second there. Lin Feng watched him go, feeling a chill. Fei Litong had changed. He used to be a dedicated cultivator who valued his brothers, but ever since he failed to help Lin Feng get revenge, he had become a different person. Lin Feng realized he was the one who had dragged Fei Litong into this darkness. Despite having the protection of the Jinyu Hall, a sense of impending doom settled in Lin Feng's gut. He didn't want to be linked to Tai Luohan's condition, so he hurried after Fei Litong, leaving the arena behind. Down on the purple stage, Tai Luohan's body began to contort. He curled up like a shrimp, his face twisted in agonizing pain. Suddenly, a figure blurred through the air, descending from the elders' seating area. I looked up as the man landed. He was middle-aged, built like a tank, and wore the formal robes of a high-ranking elder. My heart sank. I knew exactly who this was. Tai Luohan's master had arrived. The man checked Tai Luohan's pulse, and his face turned thunderous. He glared at me. Yi Xing, what did my disciple ever do to you? How could you be so cruel? I wasn't about to let him pin this on me. Elder, please listen to me. Silence, he roared. My disciple is at death's door, and he's covered in demonic energy. I never expected a hidden demon practitioner to be hiding in our sect. He raised his hand to strike me, but another figure flickered into existence between us. It was Elder Dong Lin, his white hair and beard flowing in the wind. Zhui Feng, Elder Dong Lin said calmly. You were always too impulsive. Don't be so quick to strike. Let me see him. The middle-aged elder, Zhui Feng, had already gathered his power, but with a simple pat from Elder Dong Lin, his energy vanished instantly. I watched in awe. To be an elder, you had to be at least in the spirit trekking realm. Seeing Elder Dong Lin neutralize such power so effortlessly made me wonder just how strong Fei Litong's uncle, Jin Yutao, really was. In this world, strength was the only law. Having lived as a member of the demonic race in my past life, I knew the rules of the jungle better than anyone. I needed to get stronger and fast. Elder Dong Lin, I said, cupping my fists. Please examine Tai Luohan. I need to clear my name. Elder Dong Lin nodded at me kindly, his eyes showing a hint of genuine appreciation. Soon, the other elders and sect leader Li Tianxing gathered on the stage. Li Tianxing's brow was furrowed. He knew something was very wrong. A soul-refining pill, Elder Dong Lin announced after a moment. The atmosphere turned freezing. The elders crowded around, their faces grim. They all knew the history of that pill. It was a vile thing. During the war between spirits and demons centuries ago, the demon race used these pills to turn hundreds of thousands of human prisoners into bloodthirsty monsters. It had nearly cost humanity the war. To see it resurface here, at Qingling Mountain, was a nightmare. Zhui Feng, take your disciple, Li Tianxing ordered. We will treat him together and hold an emergency meeting immediately. The elders followed the sect leader toward the assembly hall. Ordinary disciples like me weren't allowed inside. The referee finally broke the silence. The match on the purple stage is over. Yi Xing is the victor. He has earned his spot for the Forbidden Land trial. As I stepped down from the stage, Mo Liner ran toward me and threw her arms around me. You did it, Brother Xing. You won. I smiled, patting her shoulder. Wait, what about your match? Weren't you supposed to fight? Mo Liner shook her head. Sect leaderly told me that my aunt won't let me participate in this trial. She's coming on the day the trial starts to explain why. I frowned. Mo Linter's aunt was the chief immortal of Dongling Island. Everyone knew her power. Why would she stop her own niece from entering the trial? I had a feeling there was a secret here I wasn't supposed to know yet. I had secured my spot for the trial. There was no point in overthinking anything else now. My only focus was preparation. I needed to enter the Linglong Forbidden Land in peak condition. My heart was set on one thing, the bone-piercing pill. Without it, I couldn't truly step through the gates of real cultivation. More importantly, reaching the bone-piercing stage would grant me the chance to travel outside the sect. I needed that freedom to escape Fei Litong's constant shadowing. I had a gut feeling that the soul-refining pill wasn't an accident. It felt connected to Fei Litong, and behind him stood the massive shadow of the enshrined elder, Jin Yutong. I didn't want to spend every day at Qingling Mountain looking over my shoulder. The world was vast. There had to be a place where I could stand on my own feet without feeling a blade pressed against my back. My only lingering worry was Mo Liner. If I left, who would protect her? But I quickly brushed the thought aside. Her aunt was the chief immortal of Dongling Island. No one with half a brain would dare lay a finger on her. Plus, sect leader Li Tianxing would surely keep her safe. Brother Xing, what are you thinking about? Mo Liner asked, noticing my distant look. I snapped out of it and forced a smile. Oh, nothing. Just thinking about the Forbidden Land. Come on, let's head back. As we walked away, Mo Liner tucked her arm under mine. I could feel the envious glares of the other disciples burning into my back. They all wanted to be in my shoes, but after what I did to Lin Feng, none of them had the guts to challenge me. Back at my quarters, I began organizing my progress. I started practicing the heaven refining technique. It was one of the 3 great arts within the 9 Heavens tome, but even for a veteran soul like me, it was grueling. The difficulty was staggering. Still, I pushed through. I knew this was my only path to the top. I sank into a meditative state, guiding my consciousness inward. The core of the heaven refining technique was speed, absorbing spiritual energy from the world at a rate that would make a normal cultivator's head explode. But there was a catch. You needed a body of iron and top-tier talent to handle the pressure. You also had to expel impurities instantly. If they built up, you'd simply blow apart. The most terrifying part of the technique. It could devour the spiritual power of other cultivators. Usually, taking someone else's energy is a death sentence because the energies clash, leading to madness or death. But this technique refined everything into pure, original energy. I almost laughed out loud. This meant I could strip my enemies of their power and make it my own with zero side effects. It was a predator's dream. At its peak, the manual claimed I could even swallow the light of the sun, moon, and stars. While mastering the technique, I also refined my combat skills. I took the beast form fist and condensed it. Instead of a broad, scattered attack, I focused the power into a single, piercing point. For a normal spirit gathering realm cultivator, this kind of modification would be impossible. For me, it was just a matter of time. Days of bitter cultivation passed. My power surged to the peak of the middle stage of the spirit gathering realm. I was a hair's breadth away from the late stage. My progress was insane. What took others years, I had done in weeks, thanks to my 8 Desolations body. Meanwhile, in a dark corner of the sect, a very different conversation was happening. Senior brother, are you sure the sect leader won't suspect us? Lin Feng's voice was trembling. If they find out you gave that soul-refining pill to the Iron Arhut, Elder Zhui Feng will kill us. Fei Litong sneered, his eyes cold. Don't be a coward. They'll never trace it back to us. Even if they do, my uncle will protect us. Forget that. Do you remember our mission in the Forbidden Land? Lin Feng nodded nervously. We have to find the yen heart at the bottom of the abyss for your uncle. And Fei Litong prodded. And we kill Yi Xing, Lin Feng whispered. Kill him in the Forbidden Land where no one can interfere. Exactly, Fei Litong said, a murderous grin spreading across his face. I want him torn into pieces. Take this treasure I gave you and keep it hidden. We'll ambush him. We can kill him, take his gear, and do the same to anyone else who gets in our way. Lin Feng shuddered but nodded. He was trapped now. He had to follow Fei Litong's lead. I sat in my room, eyes closed, unaware of their specific plot, but it wouldn't have mattered if I knew. To me, Fei Litong and Lin Feng were nothing more than 2 jumping clowns. If they stepped into my path, I would simply crush them. 7 days later, the sun rose over the main peak of Qingling Mountain. The trial was about to begin. The disciples of Qingling Mountain were gathering. Over 30 of us had qualified for the Forbidden Land trial. The stakes were high. If we survived the Linglong Forbidden Land and finished our tasks, we'd receive the soul-breaking pill. That pill was the key to stepping onto the true path of cultivation. When I arrived at the martial arts arena, most of the others were already there. There were no elders in sight yet, so the atmosphere felt loose. Some guys were acting relaxed, but I could see the tension in their eyes. They were faking it. While we waited, the sect leaders were busy behind closed doors. Inside the council hall, sect leader Li Tianxing and the elders had been up all night. They were using their combined powers to purge the demonic energy from the Iron Arhut. Someone had fed him a soul-refining pill, and it had nearly destroyed him. By dawn, they had cleared most of the poison, but the rest would have to be pushed out by the Iron Arhut himself once he woke up. Li Tianxing looked exhausted. He scanned the room, his face heavy with concern. What do you all make of this? He asked. Elder Shui, a man with a long gray beard, spoke up first. Soul-refining pills only belong to high-level demon cultivators. It's a vile technique. To have it appear here, used on our own disciple, we need a full investigation. Another middle-aged man in white scoffed. That's obvious, Elder Shui. If we want to find the source, we need to look at who among us has had contact with demon cultivators. Li Tianxing nodded. True, but the Great War ended centuries ago. We haven't dealt with demons in ages. Who could have met one? Suddenly, Elder Zhui Feng, the Iron Arhut's master, spoke up. What about the Tusu battlefield? There are plenty of demon and ghost cultivators they're looking to level up. Anyone who's been there could have brought it back. Lin Yutao's face turned bright red with rage. Zhui Feng, watch your mouth. Everyone knows only my senior brother has entered the Tusu battlefield recently. You're pointing fingers at him. Zhui Feng didn't flinch. If your brother is innocent, why are you so nervous? You're acting like a man with a guilty conscience. I have to admit, Zhui Feng was sharper than he looked. He trapped Lin Yutao in his own anger. If Lin Yutao kept shouting, he'd only look more suspicious. Even if Lin Yutao didn't know the specifics of what Fei Litong and Bai Yutong were up to, he had to protect his family's reputation. Ridiculous, Lin Yutao sneered, trying to regain his cool. My brother is a Yuding realm cultivator. Why would he use a soul-refining pill on a lowly spirit-gathering disciple? It makes no sense. Zhui Feng went silent. He had no proof, and Lin Yutao was right about one thing. It did seem like overkill. Seeing Zhui Feng speechless, Lin Yutao laughed coldly. Even you don't believe it. I'm reporting this to my brother. You can answer to him later. Sect leader, I'm done here. He stormed out, leaving Zhui Feng fuming. Zhui Feng's disciple had been poisoned, and now he was the one being threatened? He shouted at the closed door. Don't push me too far. I don't care if he's in the Yuding realm. Is there no law in Qingling Mountain anymore? Li Tianqing stepped in to calm him down. He promised to talk to Bai Yutong personally. Then, I saw the sect leader's lips move, but no sound came out. He was sending a private message to Zhui Feng. He told him to stay patient, to hide his light, and build his strength. Zhui Feng wasn't a fool. He nodded, accepting the advice. Enough, Li Tianqing announced to the room. The trial starts today. This is a massive event for the 3 sections. Zhui Feng, Qinghua, you two will lead our disciples. It was a kind gesture. Li Tianqing wanted Zhui Feng to get away from the sect drama for a while. The 2 elders bowed, promising to return with successful disciples. Then, the doors to the council hall swung open. Li Tianqing walked out onto the arena and looked at us. You are the future of Qingling Mountain, he said, his voice echoing. The bloodline of our sect. I wish you victory. Now move out. Zhui Feng and Elder Qinghua stepped forward. They each pulled out a tiny spirit sword, one white, one flaming red. With a quick command, the swords erupted in light, growing until they were massive, 10 feet wide and dozens of feet long. Get on, they commanded. The other disciples had never seen anything like it. They scrambled onto the giant blades, cheering and screaming as we blasted into the sky. I stayed quiet, but my heart was racing. In my past life, I was a high-level demon cultivator. I used to fly like this all the time, but it had been so long. I looked down at the shrinking ground. With my 8 desolations body, the 9 heavens tome, and my past experience, I knew I would reach the top faster than anyone else. Only a fool would waste these advantages. The Linglong Forbidden Land sat to the southeast of Qingling Mountain. It was shared by 3 sects, Qingling, Dongling Island, and the Qingmu sect, and was heavily guarded year-round. Thanks to the speed of the elders' flying swords, we arrived at the entrance in no time. The real test was about to begin. The elders' flying swords were high-grade treasures. If we had traveled on foot, it would have taken a full day to reach the destination. This was the true allure of becoming a high-level cultivator. In this world, even if you started as a beggar, once you attained power, no one would dare look down on you. I looked around at the other spirit-gathering realm disciples. Their faces were flushed with longing. They were desperate to succeed in this trial, to break through to the pulse-opening realm, and eventually reach the spirit-wandering realm. But it was easier said than done. The path was treacherous. One wrong move could lead to cultivation deviation or even death. That was why high-level cultivators were so rare. Haraha, why did Qingling Mountain send you 2 this year? Zhui Feng, Qinghua. A booming voice cut through the air. I looked toward the source and saw a strange-looking man standing nearby. He was leading a group of about 20 disciples. He looked bizarre. His beard and eyebrows were incredibly long, but his head was almost completely bald. It was an unsettling sight. Zhui Feng had already noticed him. This was one of the 3 great elders of the Qingmu sect. His cultivation was deep, likely at the middle stage of the spirit-wandering realm. Both Zhui Feng and Qinghua were only at the early stage. If it came to a fight, our elders wouldn't stand a chance. If it isn't Mr. Ji Guanzi of the Qingmu sect, Zhui Feng said, his tone neutral. Forgive me, I didn't recognize you at first. A few of our disciples stifled laughs. The name Ji Guanzi sounded like coxcomb, which was hilarious considering the man didn't have a single hair on top of his head. Coxcomb. More like eyebrow man. Fei Litong and Lin Feng were laughing the loudest, doubling over as if it were the funniest joke in the world. Ji Guanzi's face turned a deep shade of purple. He was a powerful elder, and being mocked by low-level brats was a massive insult. You undisciplined little animals. Ji Guanzi roared, pointing a finger at the laughing pair. Zhui Feng, hand those 2 over to me for punishment right now. Otherwise, None of you are leaving this spot today. Zhui Feng frowned. He clearly despised Fei Litong and Lin Feng's big mouths, but they were still disciples of Qingling Mountain. His job was to protect us. He couldn't just hand them over to be slaughtered. Elder Ji Guanzi. Qinghua stepped in, his voice calm but firm. You are a senior expert. There's no need to lower yourself by fighting with juniors. People will talk. He then turned a sharp gaze on the two troublemakers. You two, apologize to Senior Ji Guanzi immediately. If you ever speak out of turn again, I will punish you myself. Fei Litong and Lin Feng realized they had crossed a line. They bowed reluctantly. Senior Ji Guanzi, we were disrespectful. Please forgive us. Ji Guanzi snorted. Qinghua, stop acting so righteous. Back when I was leading trials, you were just a snot-nosed disciple participating in them. Don't you dare put on airs with me. Qinghua's face reddened with anger, but Zhui Feng stepped forward before things escalated. Brother Ji Guanzi, we will not hand over our disciples. We might not match your divine powers, but if you insist on attacking our people, we won't stand idly by. Suddenly, Fei Litong spoke up, a smug, punchable grin on his face. Elder Zhui Feng, Elder Qinghua, I have the signal flare my uncle gave me. Why don't I just call him here to settle this? He pulled out a small, ornate object. It was a beacon altar. It seemed Bai Yutong really favored this brat, giving him not only soul-refining pills, but also a way to summon help instantly. If Fei Litong lit that flare, Bai Yutong would arrive in minutes. Zhui Feng's expression turned to one of pure disgust. This kid was a menace, hiding behind his uncle's reputation to insult a spirit-wandering realm expert. Seeing Fei Litong's arrogant face, Zhui Feng started to wonder if his own disciple, Tai Luohan, had been harmed by this boy. If he ever found proof, he'd kill Fei Litong himself, regardless of the consequences. Ji Guanzi was shaking with rage. Zhui Feng, you see this? This brat is too much. I'll risk offending your entire sect just to teach him a lesson. Qinghua's lips moved silently, sending a private transmission to Ji Guanzi. No one else could hear what was said, but Ji Guanzi's expression shifted rapidly. He went from a puffed-up toad to a deflated balloon. His face turned grim. A Jade Pavilion realm cultivator. He hadn't expected Qingling Mountain to have someone at that level now. He couldn't be sure if Qinghua was lying, but he couldn't afford to take the risk. If the boy really was the nephew of a Jade Pavilion expert like Bai Yutong, and if that flare actually brought him here, Ji Guanzi would be the one humiliated, or worse. Humph, Ji Guanzi spat, looking for a way to save face. Fine. Today, I'll give Zhui Feng and Qinghua a pass. I won't lower myself to your level. But boy, if you ever disrespect me again, I'll strip you of your cultivation myself. He stomped over to a large rock and sat down, closing his eyes to meditate in a huff. Zhui Feng and Qinghua shared a look of relief, though their eyes were still full of loathing when they looked at Fei Litong. The brat didn't seem to care at all. Suddenly, a blinding golden light streaked across the sky. It shimmered with 7 different colors, vibrant and dazzling. It's the 7-color boat from Dongling Island, someone shouted. I looked up as the light drew closer. It was a massive vessel, about 60 feet long, surrounded by swirling rainbow clouds. It was beautiful. As it touched down, I realized the entire deck was filled with women. A sea of beautiful female cultivators had arrived, their voices chirping like birds as they landed. The male disciples from Qingling Mountain and the Qingmu sect couldn't take their eyes off the scene. Their stares were glued to the spot. Both sects had plenty of female disciples, but seeing this many stunning women arrive at once was different. It made the blood of these hot-blooded young men boil. Old Kai saw the 7-color boat land and immediately hurried forward. He approached the middle-aged female cultivator leading the group with a wide smile. He greeted her, remarking that he hadn't expected Elder Jiao Yu to lead the trial personally this year. He mentioned it had been 3 years since they last met. Elder Jiao Yu was incredibly beautiful, possessing a mature charm that outshone even the younger disciples behind her. However, she was wrapped in a layer of icy coldness. Her expression made it clear she wanted everyone to stay far away. She didn't waste time on small talk. She told Old Kai to stop the chatter and open the forbidden ground so the trial could begin. She was blunt and direct. Old Kai was completely brushed off, but he didn't look angry. In fact, he looked like he expected it. It seemed he was used to getting the cold shoulder from her. Jiao Yu, Zhui Feng, and Old Kai each pulled out a token. These weren't ordinary items. They radiated a powerful spiritual energy, though the material they were made of was a mystery. Jiao Yu raised her voice so everyone could hear. She announced that the Linglong Forbidden Ground was about to open. Once it was active, they would only have the time it takes to finish a cup of tea to enter. The mission was the same as previous years: collect enough jade spring water. She warned us not to overreach. We had to know our limits. No one could save us once we were inside. Any cultivator above the spirit gathering realm would cause the entire space to collapse if they tried to enter. We were on our own. As soon as she finished speaking, the thick fog at the entrance began to churn. The 3 tokens emitted a blinding golden light that cut through the mist, revealing the true path. Jiao Yu shouted for us to enter. The disciples from all 3 sects swarmed inside like a tide. I moved with the Qingling Mountain group, stepping into the mysterious territory. The moment I crossed the threshold, a shiver ran down my spine. I felt something familiar. It was an aura I hadn't sensed in a long time. Mixed with the spiritual energy was a trace of demonic qi. It was incredibly faint, almost non-existent, but I recognized it instantly. It felt comfortable, even welcoming. The others didn't feel the same way. Their faces twisted as if they had just stepped into a filthy latrine. They covered their noses, complaining about the terrible smell. Some felt nauseous, while others complained of splitting headaches. One of the senior disciples warned everyone to be careful. He guessed it was lingering demonic qi from the ancient Great War. He told everyone to take some refreshing medicine and stay alert. Most of the Qingling Mountain disciples huddled together, planning to finish the mission as a group. A few loners vanished into the distance immediately. Fei Litong and Lin Feng stepped forward then. Fei Litong sneered at the group, calling them trash. He mocked their dream of getting the spring water. He reminded them that less than a fifth of the participants usually made it out alive. He told them to keep playing house while he went for the real prize. Before leaving, he gave me a cold, murderous glare. Then he and Lin Feng turned and disappeared into the fog. The remaining disciples muttered under their breath. Fei Litong was acting like he owned the place just because of his uncle, Bai Yutong. He had humiliated Old Kai earlier, and now he was insulting his own sect members. Everyone was furious, but no one dared to stand up to him. I quietly slipped away from the crowd. I wanted to tail Fei Litong and Lin Feng. I wanted to see what kind of tricks they had up their sleeves. I also knew something the others didn't. Even a tiny amount of demonic qi would suppress the cultivation of human practitioners. Worse, any living creature inside would be transformed into a demonic beast. These monsters were far more terrifying than anything these rookie disciples could imagine. Despite their big talk, Fei Litong and Lin Feng were moving cautiously. They kept whispering to each other and checking a map. I had a map too, given to me by Li Tianxing, showing the terrain and the locations of treasures and dangers. Suddenly, a scream pierced the air. I saw Lin Feng collapse to the ground. Fei Litong was standing over him, facing off against something in the shadows. A bright, glowing object was circling Fei Litong's body. It was clearly a high-quality treasure. Fei Litong shouted at Lin Feng to get up, warning him that they couldn't stay there. Lin Feng struggled to his feet, clutching his chest. He spat out a mouthful of blood and groaned that he was hurt. Fei Litong told him he'd be fine because he was wearing the ice silk armor their master gave him. It was just a blunt impact. As long as the demonic qi didn't enter his body, he would live. Lin Feng asked what they should do. Fei Litong gritted his teeth and said they had to fight their way through. He commanded his glowing treasure to strike. Then he roared, performing the yellow spring destruction finger. A sickly yellow-green light shot out alongside his treasure. From my hiding spot, I finally saw their attackers. It was 2 spiders, but they were massive and dripping with demonic energy. My past life as a demonic cultivator made them easy to identify. These were demon spiders. The spiders weren't intimidated by the flashy techniques. They lunged at the 2 men with incredible speed. Fei Litong's treasure flew back to protect him, and his finger technique missed completely. He was quick, though. He grabbed Lin Feng and retreated just in time to avoid a lethal strike. The spiders weren't done. They opened their mouths and spat out long, greenish-black silk. Fei Litong desperately used his treasure to block the webs. In a flash, the glowing object was wrapped tight in the dark silk. It spun wildly, trying to break free. My heart skipped a beat when I saw that silk. Even though it wasn't pure, I recognized it instantly. It was black-green silk. In my old life, this was an essential material for crafting demonic weapons. Usually, it had to be refined from massive amounts of chi, but certain rare demonic beasts like these spiders could produce it naturally. This place was more dangerous and more interesting than I thought. If these two demon spiders were in the demon jade realm, they would sell for a fortune. But this was the mortal realm. Aside from a few high-level cultivators, nobody here knew the true value of black-green silk. Fei Litong and Lin Feng certainly didn't. To them, these spiders were just obstacles. To me, they were a prize I had to have. My heaven-refining technique could convert demonic energy into spiritual power. That silk was exactly what I needed to fuel my growth. I watched from the shadows, worried. If Fei Litong used a finishing move and killed them, the silk would be ruined. I needed a way to lure those two away so I could claim the spiders for myself. Suddenly, a deafening explosion rocked the northwest. Flames shot into the sky, painting the horizon deep crimson. Fei Litong and Lin Feng spun around, startled. Even the two demon spiders shivered, their aggressive clicking slowing down as they sensed the shockwave. Fei Litong looked panicked. He told Lin Feng they were out of time. That explosion came from the direction of Jade Firmament Cliff. It meant someone had already reached the spring. They couldn't waste another second fighting these beasts. Fei Litong reached into his storage bag and pulled out a small, metallic sphere. He gritted his teeth and hurled it at the spiders. The creatures were fast. Sensing danger, they retreated nearly 100 feet in a blur of movement. I stayed focused, watching the sphere. Suddenly, my soul shuddered. My body went limp, and my vision faded into total darkness. It only lasted a few heartbeats before I regained consciousness, but I was shaken. That little ball was terrifying. It was a specialized treasure designed to attack the spirit directly. If Fei Litong had followed up with a killing blow during those few seconds of paralysis, I would have been defenseless. I made a mental note. Never let that man get a clean shot at me. When I opened my eyes, Fei Litong and Lin Feng were gone. They hadn't stayed to check their work. They were sprinting toward the fire in the distance. The two demon spiders were collapsed on the ground, unconscious. Since they had taken the blast head-on, they were out cold. This was my lucky day. I pulled out a spirit beast bag I had prepared specifically for this trip. I had done my homework before entering the Forbidden Zone, knowing I might encounter demonic beasts. I also had my Heaven-Earth bag ready for loot. My foresight was paying off. Even if I didn't get the Jade Firmament Spring water, these two spiders could give me enough power to break through to the spirit opening realm. I tucked the spiders away and looked toward the flames. Curiosity gnawed at me. I stayed low and followed the path Fei Litong took, my nerves stretched thin. I didn't have a protective treasure like he did. If a beast ambushed me now, it would be over. Fortunately, the path was clear. I reached the source of the light and found a massive standoff. Fei Litong and Lin Feng were there, along with several other groups. I recognized disciples from the Azure Spirit sect, the Azurewood sect, and about a dozen female cultivators from East Spirit Island. These were the elites. All of them were at the peak of the spirit gathering realm, just one step away from breaking through. They all needed the same thing, the Jade Firmament Spring water to craft spirit opening pills. I stayed hidden and listened. A disciple from the Azurewood sect named Pan Xingzi was arguing with Fei Litong. He brought up an old grudge involving an elder, but suggested they work together just long enough to clear the cave and get the water. Fei Litong just laughed. He called Pan Xingzi a fake and told him to get lost. The tension was thick enough to cut with a blade. Finally, an older woman from East Spirit Island named Luo Yin stepped in. She told them to stop bickering. Their private grudges didn't matter right now. They needed to divide the water and move on. Fei Litong backed down slightly, giving in for her sake. He told Pan Xingzi to lead the charge while he and Luo Yin covered the rear. Pan Xingzi blew up at that. He wasn't anyone's slave. He demanded to know why he had to go first. Luo Yin sighed, her patience gone. She offered to lead the way herself if they were both too cowardly to do it. That shut them both up. Off to the side, a few Azure Spirit sect disciples who had been quiet finally spoke up. Their leader, Zhang Ying, said they weren't going in yet. They wanted to wait. Fei Litong's face turned purple. He hissed at Zhang Ying, asking if he cared about the sect's reputation at all. Zhang Ying didn't even blink. He told Fei Litong that being a disciple didn't give him the right to bark orders. I heard him whisper to his friends that Fei Litong was just an elder's lapdog, not the voice of the sect. Fei Litong heard it too. He swallowed his rage, likely planning his revenge for later. But Lin Feng couldn't keep his mouth shut. He stepped forward, glaring at Zhang Ying, demanding he repeat what he just said. Lin Feng sneered at the Azure Spirit sect disciples. He asked them what was so wrong with being an enshrined elder. He demanded to know if having a father with that title made him inferior to them. He didn't stop there. He bragged that his senior uncle was a cultivator in the Jade Pavilion realm. He challenged them to find a single one of their masters who could survive even one strike from his uncle. Zhang Ying and his group went silent. They were brave enough to insult an enshrined elder like Lin Yutao, but they didn't dare say a word against Bai Yutong. That man was the peak of power in all of Qingling Mountain. Everyone knew the score. Unless something catastrophic happened, Bai Yutong was destined to become the chief elder of East Forest and the great elder of the entire council. He wasn't actively fighting for power yet, but Zhang Ying's master had analyzed the situation carefully. A man like that wouldn't stay idle forever. Once a cultivator reaches a certain level of strength, they always crave authority. Even immortals have egos. While they were busy arguing, a dark shadow suddenly blurred past the group. It moved like a ghost. Before anyone could blink, it vanished into the thick white mist swirling at the entrance of the Yuqiong cave. By the time we realized what happened, the figure was gone. Someone had slipped past us. All three sects were standing right there, and yet someone had managed to cut in line. It was an insult to everyone present. Luo Yin turned back and let out a cold snort at the men who had been bickering. She didn't wait for an explanation. She led her dozen junior sisters straight into the cave. Fei Litong gritted his teeth, signaling for Lin Feng to follow close behind Luo Yan's group. Pan Xingzi was the last to move, leading the Qingmu sect into the darkness. Zhang Ying stayed back for a moment. One of his companions leaned in and asked if we were still waiting. Zhang Ying didn't answer immediately. He just stared at the cave entrance, his brow furrowed in deep thought.